focus, and now she has a degree gathering dust somewhere. After college, she worked at a marketing firm for all of 8 months before quitting because her boss didn't respect her vision. Since then, it's been a string of part-time retail jobs she quits the moment they expect her to, actually work. Between jobs, she lives rent-free at our parents' place, eating their food and running up their utilities while building her brand. Carmen tried starting some nonsense online clothing boutique that tanked after burning through $15,000 of my parents' retirement money. High-end fashion, she called it. More like high-end garbage bags with sequins. The funniest part was watching her make these cringe-worthy entrepreneur posts while the business was actively failing. Rise and grind, boss babe, women in business. Meanwhile, she couldn't even ship the right sizes to people. You get the vibe, LOL. Last Christmas, Carmen had the nerve to gift me a shout-out package on her Instagram as my present. She literally handed me a card with her own profile printed on it saying, "Congrats, you've won a featured post on Carmen Styles." What even is that? Meanwhile, I'd spent $350 on the Apple Watch she'd been hinting about for months. I even tried helping with her little business, built shelves, set up spreadsheets, offered to handle shipping with my logistics experience. She brushed it off, said my corporate mindset killed her creativity. 2 months later, she was buried in complaints about wrong orders and late deliveries. When customers started posting negative reviews, she called me crying about internet bullies and expected me to call each one and make it right because I'm good with difficult people. I refused, and she didn't speak to me for a month. The most peaceful month of my life, honestly. My parents eat that crap up. Dad bought her a MacBook Pro for editing that she uses to watch Netflix. Mom defends her every failure like it's some badge of honor. Carmen's exploring her passions. No, Carmen's exploring your wallet. Anytime I try to point out that maybe Carmen needs to get a real job, I'm the bad guy. You just don't understand the creator economy, Sam. Pretty sure the creator economy involves actually creating something of value, but what do I know? The worst was when Carmen crashed her car texting while driving, big surprise, and Mom called me instead of insurance. Carmen's too upset to deal with this right now, she explained, as if that justified anything. When I asked about their coverage, turns out they dropped it to liability only without telling me, after I'd specifically paid for their comprehensive policy 6 months
Oh,
before.
okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. We're back. Today we're playing Jurassic World Evolution 2. I started playing it last night, and I literally cannot stop playing it. Also, Aries, hello, welcome in. Aries, I changed my username. No worries, no worries. We're listening, as you can tell, we are listening to, we're listening to Reddit stories while I do this, because why not? I do need to check TikTok, though.
I dropped $3,800 on Carmen's car repairs last year because she couldn't afford it, yet she still made it to Coachella that same month.
Okay.
It was just basic maintenance she ignored until it all failed. Brakes shot.
So I don't know if I finished it. I don't think I did.
Tires bald as my Uncle Joe.
But anyways, Aries, how are you doing today?
Meanwhile, her Instagram was all boat selfies and some guy with industry connections, whatever that means. I even covered Dad's $5,200 medical bills because he refused cheaper insurance. Said the hospital food was better on his plan. He's got basic health issues he could manage if he took his meds and ate something green once in a while. Every time I buy groceries, the veggies rot and the junk disappears like magic. Then he has the audacity to call me, wheezing after climbing the stairs, to complain that his doctor is trying to scam him by suggesting he lose weight and exercise. Mom's no better with the medical stuff. She got prescribed generic blood pressure meds, but insisted on the name brand that cost $180 more per month because she read online that generics are made in China. I tried explaining that her medication is literally the same compound, just cheaper, and she accused me of wanting her to die to save a few bucks. Then she had me drive her to 3 different pharmacies to find one that stocked her preferred brand. One time, I was late sending money for their electric bill because I was literally in the hospital with a work injury. A beam dropped on my shoulder and tore my rotator cuff. The surgeon said I was lucky it wasn't worse. Mom called me 4 times, asking where the money was. She didn't even ask how I was doing, just, "We need that transfer today, Sam." I was literally on post-op painkillers, trying to figure out how to do a bank transfer with one arm in a sling. The next day, she showed up at the hospital, not with food or comfort items, but with their water bill and property tax statement. She laid them on my meal tray, right next to my Jell-O cup, and started calculating how much I'd need to transfer once I got my workers' comp check. Then she complained about the hospital parking fee and hinted that I should cover that too. All told, I've dumped around $42,000 into their lives over the past 3 years. That's not an estimate. I actually went through my bank statements and added it all up one depressing Sunday night. Mortgage help, car payments, medical bills, loans that were never repaid, groceries, utilities. It just kept adding up. Meanwhile, I'm living in a crappy one-bedroom apartment with
Yay.
pipes that sound like they're summoning demons every time I flush. But hey, family's family, right? At least that's what I kept telling myself while I watched my savings account bleed out. My apartment isn't even cheap. $1,350 a month for 680 square feet in a building that was probably nice when Reagan was president. The location's decent, close to most of our job sites, but the amenities...
I can't wait till I get to the water ones.
Treadmill and 2 dumbbells in what used to be a storage closet. The pool is closed more often than it's open.
Oh, so that was it. Okay.
While essentially supporting 2 households. My buddy Derek kept telling me...
So I 100% that.
I'd brush it off with the classic. They do the same for me. Even though I knew they wouldn't spot me $50 if I was stranded. He's known me since high school and watched the whole family's money drain in real time.
I liked...
He even tried an intervention once. Showed up with spreadsheets breaking down how I could have bought a house by now. I got pissed, ignored him for 2 weeks, then apologized when I realized he was just looking out. Last Thanksgiving proved Derek right. I caught the flu, the real deal, 103 degrees.
Pennsylvania was really pretty.
I called Mom to say I couldn't make dinner. Her response? But who's going to carve the turkey? Your father's wrist is still sore from his golf game. Not, are you okay? Or need anything? Just concern about who would perform my designated function. I ended up dragging myself there anyway, sweating through dinner and giving everything.
Sure, let's start it.
Dad had the nerve.
Very sleepy. I also don't play creatures this scenario, but I'm scared to play due to not wanting to lose my characters. Oh no! Also gotta go because gotta eat. Okay, have fun. Hopefully you eat something yummy.
The AC was busted again, and the maintenance guy, Terry, had been saying, I'll fix it.
Unlimited money?
On my couch in basketball shorts, chugging ice water, when my phone lit up with my mom's face. The window unit I'd bought as a backup was struggling against the 94-degree heat, making this awful rattling noise every few minutes. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour day overseeing a concrete pour that had to be done before the real heat kicked in. My shirt was still damp with sweat, and I had that bone-deep exhaustion that comes from being on your feet all day. Hey, Mom, I answered, figuring she needed grocery money or something. Sam, she said with that fake cheerful voice, just wanted to let you know Carmen's hosting a big pool party at her place for the 4th. We're covering everything. By her place, Mom meant the townhouse Carmen rented that I was subsidizing to the tune of $600 a month because she couldn't afford the full $1,800 rent on her sporadic income from part-time social media consulting gigs. By we're covering everything, she meant I'd be getting a call in a day or two asking for a little help with party supplies. I waited for the invite. It didn't come. So, should I bring something? I finally asked. Oh, she said with this weird little laugh. Actually, Carmen doesn't want you there. She's invited some influencer friends and doesn't want them seeing her, less successful family members. No offense. I nearly choked. Are you freaking kidding me? After everything I've done for you guys? Don't be so sensitive, Sam. It's her big networking opportunity. She can't have you showing up in your work clothes, talking about construction. It ruins her image. I looked down at my faded t-shirt with my company's logo and a small tear near the hem. Was this what Carmen was so ashamed of? The fact that I actually worked for a living? Her image? Mom, I live in a shoebox apartment because I've been paying your bills. I gave Carmen $3,000 last month. That $3,000 was for a social media course run by some Instagram guru promising to teach the secrets of monetization. Carmen swore this was the investment that would finally launch her career. I'd had to put off getting my truck's transmission service to cover it. The week after I gave her the money, she posted pics of a new designer purse with hashtag self-investment. When I texted asking about it, she claimed it was borrowed from a friend for photo shoots. That friend's profile didn't exist when I searched for it. Well, that's your choice. Nobody asked you to do that. Anyway, Carmen needs this for her career. Don't be selfish. I hung up and immediately opened my banking app. There it was, $9,800 transferred to them over the past 4 months alone. And I just put down a $1,500 deposit on a lake house rental for the whole family for the week after the 4th. Mom had been begging for months about needing a family getaway. I'd booked it as a surprise, planning to tell them this weekend. It had a dock for fishing, which Dad used to love before he got too lazy to go, a fire pit for making s'mores, and enough bedrooms that we wouldn't be on top of each other. My finger hovered over the cancellation link. That Instagram post from last weekend flashed in my head. Her posing on some guy's boat with the caption, Self-Care Sunday, sometimes you gotta splurge. On yourself, with the nail polish emoji, while I was eating ramen for the 3rd night that week because I'd helped Mom cover their property tax bill. I hit cancel. Refund processed. But that wasn't enough, not nearly enough. For the first time in years, I let myself really feel the anger I'd been pushing down. All those times I'd skipped going out with friends because I couldn't afford it. The vacation days I'd sold back to my company for extra cash that went straight to their bills. The dating relationships that fizzled because I was always stressed about money or getting calls from my family during dates. Like the time I was at dinner with Melissa, this cool architect I'd met through work. Right as our food arrived, Carmen called 5 times in a row. When I finally answered, thinking someone had died, it was because she'd locked herself out of her Apple account and needed my password right now because she was in the middle of a super important Instagram live. Melissa never returned my calls after that date. The next morning, I called my cousin Toby, who works at the electric company. "Yo, need a favor," I said when he picked up. "What's up, man? You sound pissed." Toby and I used to be close as kids before my family's financial disaster pulled me away from everyone. He'd gotten a solid union job right out of high school, bought a modest house with his wife Tara, and had 2 kids and a dog. The normal, stable life I should have had if I wasn't constantly bailing out my family. I laid out the whole situation, years of supporting them, thousands drained from my account, and now being excluded from the family 4th of July because I might damage Carmen's influencer cred. "That's messed up," Toby said. "Your sister's always been a taker, but your parents should know better." My plan was simple. Toby worked in the scheduling department at the electric company. With the heat wave coming, they were already preparing for potential brownouts due to high AC usage. All he had to do was make sure my parents' neighborhood was on the list for a planned maintenance outage during peak party hours on the 4th. Toby laughed his butt off as I explained. "That's wild, dude. I love it. I'm in." "You sure you won't get in trouble?" I asked, suddenly concerned about dragging him into my family drama. "Nah, these maintenance outages are scheduled all the time in summer. I'll just move some things around on the calendar. Totally routine paperwork stuff. Nobody will question it." I also hit up my friend Marcus, who does HVAC work. His company handled the maintenance for Carmen's townhouse complex. "You sure about this?" he asked after I explained. "Text me when you want it done." Marcus agreed to postpone the repair order for Carmen's AC unit, which was already showing signs of strain. Nothing dangerous, just making sure it wouldn't get fixed.
Hello everybody, welcome in on TikTok. How's everybody doing? Oh, do I not need... Oh, everything already has power.
They were getting during the heat wave. Over the next few days, I kept everything normal. Dad called, asking for $200 for party supplies, and I sent it without comment. Mom texted about borrowing my coolers for the party, and I dropped them off with a smile. Carmen didn't contact
I want
me
dinosaurs, please. Or do I have to go... Are there dinosaurs here I have to get, maybe? I've only been doing the thingies, so...
on my backup credit card, something I'd set up for emergencies that had somehow become their regular shopping card. I changed all my passwords and pins. I even called my cell phone provider to remove Carmen from my family plan, where I'd been paying for her unlimited data for years. The customer service rep asked if I wanted to notify the removed line. "Absolutely not," I said. "Let her find out the hard way." The day before the 4th, Toby swung by my place with a drink. "All set for tomorrow," he grinned. "Man, this heat wave is supposed to be brutal. Gonna hit 97 degrees. Yep, perfect timing." July 4th came, and my social feeds lit up with Carmen's pool party prep, Mom arranging platters of food, Dad in a ridiculous grill apron setting up new patio furniture I definitely paid for at some point, Carmen in a new bikini posing with her friends by the pool. Hashtag family time was the hashtag all smiles and rainbows. The food spread looked expensive. Steaks, fancy charcuterie boards, and what looked like catered desserts. There were professional-looking decorations everywhere, balloon arches, custom banners, even what looked like a photo booth set up with props, all for Carmen's networking opportunity. I recognized the pool floats from my Amazon account. They'd been delivered to my place by mistake last week before I forwarded them to Carmen's. Somehow, she'd ordered.
Okay, let's do like a little tiny
on my account and forgotten to mention it. She even posted a story with some lame influencer who had 5,000
authentic sushi. Damn, get me in there.
Style by Jenna at my exclusive pool gathering. Hashtag networking.
We'll do an emergency spot too, cause why wouldn't we?
Along the 3rd baseline. I bought myself a jersey, got the overpriced drink and nachos, even splurged on dessert. "So, you really going through with this?" Derek asked. "Yep," I said. "Tonight's the night I stop being their safety net." "About time," he replied. "What are you gonna do with all that extra money you're not sending their way?" I hadn't even thought that far ahead. Maybe actually start saving for my own house. Or take a real vacation for once. Hell, maybe I'll even start dating again without having to end every night early because Mom's calling about the water bill. To financial freedom, Derek said, raising his cup. When we got back to my place around 11:45 p.m., my phone was exploding. Mom, Sam, the power just went out. The whole block. Call us back. Son, we need help. Power's gone, and it's hot as hell in here. Carmen, what the hell did you do? The power's out, and all my influencer friends are leaving. My makeup is running. I scrolled through more messages, smiling at each one. The satisfaction was real. Carmen, my refrigerator full of party food is gonna spoil. This is thousands of dollars. Mom, Sam, please call us back. It's an emergency. Dad, the neighbors say the power company says it won't be back until morning. Then came the social media notifications. Carmen's Instagram story update, worst night ever. Power outage, ruined everything. Universe is testing me, with a cry emoji. One of her friends had posted, thanks for the sweat fest when Carmen styles. Maybe check your electricity bill next time. LOL. Another commented, some exclusive event. Couldn't even keep the lights on. Fail. The schadenfreude was delicious. Then I turned my phone off and slept like a baby for the first time in years. No anxiety about tomorrow's family emergency. No mental calculations of how much I could spare this month. Just peaceful, dreamless sleep. The next day, notifications from them were still piling up. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, 89 texts. I scrolled through them with a huge grin on my face. The power had gone out at Carmen's right as the party was peaking. Toby had arranged for their block to be accidentally deprioritized for restoration due to a system error. With temperatures still in the 90s at midnight, everyone had left Carmen's dark, hot house. Her perfect pool party had ended with warm drinks, melting ice cream, and a bunch of sweaty, pissed-off guests. But that was just the beginning. The AC had failed completely around 10 p.m., right before the power outage. Marcus had made sure the emergency repair team had scheduling conflicts. The combination of no AC and no power had turned Carmen's townhouse into an oven. According to the increasingly desperate texts, most of her influencer friends had left within an hour of the power outage, complaining about the heat and the darkness. One of Carmen's texts really got me. I've lost all my credibility because of you. Lifestyle by Jenna unfollowed me. She was going to feature me in her upcoming collab. The horror of being unfollowed by a nobody with a bot follower count. Tragedy. My parents had apparently tried to save the day by bringing over battery-powered lanterns, but it was too little, too late. The food had started to spoil in the heat, and without music, air conditioning, or even fans, the party had died a quick death. Mom's texts ranged from pleading to threatening, culminating in, your father's blood pressure is through the roof because of this stress. If anything happens to him, it's on you. Around 2 p.m., there was a pounding at my door. Dad stood there, red-faced and sweating, with Mom and Carmen behind him. The power's still out, he growled, and now the lake house reservation is gone. What the hell did you do? I leaned against the door frame, cool air from my perfectly functioning AC washing over them. They looked rough. Clearly, none of them had slept well in the heat. Carmen's hair was frizzy, making her look like a pissed-off zombie. Mom's makeup was smeared, and Dad's shirt had sweat stains all over it. Guess I'm not family enough.
I'll do 2 restrooms.
Family enough to fix your problems,
Only
huh?
because that makes sense, right?
Sam, Dad shouted. It's 95
Just make sure
degrees in
it's
that
the
house.
same.
Fix it now. You know what's not
Okay,
funny?
so this will be like the big, like, main area. I'll put a couple more hotels over here.
You did this on purpose. You ruined everything. I had real influencers there. This could have been my big break. Oh,
I should have went the other way, but you know, it's fine.
Who sells knockoff handbags from her mom's basement? But sure, I'm the embarrassment. I laughed. You're just jealous because I'm building something while you swing hammers all day like a caveman, she screamed. Building what, Carmen? Debt? Delusion? You've never earned an honest dollar in your life. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. Want to see something interesting? Here's what I've sent you in the past year alone. I scrolled through the transfers. $600, $850, $1,200, on and on.
Okay.
That's $16,400, Carmen, just to you, not counting what I've given Mom and Dad. Where's that building something money coming from? Oh, right, my caveman job. Mom jumped in. Sam, that's enough. How dare you speak to your sister that way after all we've done for you? That was it. Something in me snapped. All you've done for me? Are you freaking kidding me? I've given you $42,000 in 3 years. I live in a hole of an apartment while Carmen posts about a luxury lifestyle from a house I basically pay for. Carmen rolled her eyes. Whatever. Can I use your shower? I have a sponsored post due today, and I look like crap. I stared at her, not believing the nerve. She got that while my parents were just looking at me like I was the problem here. I was done with this nonsense. Get out, I said. All of you, get the hell out of my building. The hell you mean, get out? Mom started. Get out, I yelled, loud enough that my neighbor's door cracked open. I'm done being your freaking wallet. Figure it out yourselves. You're gonna regret this, Carmen hissed as Dad pulled her away. You're dead to me. Then I slammed the door.
I would like a giant herbivore spot. The only thing I low-key worry about is that the herbivores that I'll pick won't get along very well. Because sometimes, you know, it'd be like that. Okay, anyway, let me get the gates.
And the extra insurance I was paying on Dad's car. Each cancellation felt like cutting a chain that had been weighing me down. The total monthly savings, $1,876.45.
Okay.
Almost $2,000.
Let's make
that I'd been hemorrhaging to support
the lake a little bit smaller. Okay. We'll do grass. I think it's all grass, right? Yeah. So we'll do a forest spot here.
Mom, Sam, why can't I access the emergency fund account? Dad, son, this has gone too far. Cut it off now. I didn't answer any of them. But you know what I did instead? I booked a flight to Bali, 3 weeks.
Then we'll do little leafy climbers.
Wanted to do, but could never afford because I was too busy bailing them out. The travel agent, yes, I used a real person. Wanted to make sure everything was perfect. Helped me find a great deal on a beachfront bungalow. First big vacation? She asked as I was putting down the deposit. First vacation where I'm only paying for myself, I replied. The total came to $4,300, including flights, accommodations, and some excursions. Less than I typically spent on my family in a month. By afternoon, the family group chat was on fire. Mom, I can't believe you'd do this to your own family. Dad, after everything we've sacrificed for you. Carmen, hope you enjoy being alone forever. Then my cousin Toby called. Dude, your family is telling everyone you abandoned them. Your aunt just called me, asking if you had a mental breakdown. Toby told me they were telling everyone I flipped out for no reason, cut them off, and was being cruel. Carmen was posting tearful crap about toxic family members and how money changes people, dropping hashtags like #HealingJourney. While her followers flooded the comments with hearts and stay strong replies, I laughed and told him to send the posts. She was in full victim mode, claiming cutting off family was hard, blaming jealousy of her success. The best part? Carmen was posting this from her healing retreat at the local Marriott. Room service receipts clearly visible.
Actually, wait, why did I do that? Hold on. I don't even know what I'm putting in here yet. I shouldn't do that.
My parents had moved in with Carmen temporarily until their power.
I really don't want a bunch of carnivores since that was my last thing I did.
My aunt had apparently sent them $500 after hearing their sob story. I said nothing. Let them spin whatever makes them sleep at night. I'm out of the game. I spent the rest of the week ignoring their calls and prepping for my trip. I bought new clothes, a decent camera, some hiking gear. Things I'd always wanted but never justified because that money always ended up solving someone else's crisis. Then on Wednesday, my neighbor spotted me in the parking lot. Hey man, your family was here again earlier, banging on your door for 20 minutes. Is everything all right? They looked pissed. Sorry about that, I said. Family drama. Thursday night, the day before my flight, I got a text from my dad. Your mother is crying herself to sleep every night. Hope you're happy. I wrote back for the first time in days I'm actually happier than I've been in years. I'll be flying to Bali tomorrow. Don't contact me. Then came a message almost immediately from Mom. You're going on vacation while we're struggling? How could you be so selfish? I blocked them all, finished packing, and ordered myself a nice dinner. For once, I wasn't counting pennies or worrying about their next crisis. Nope, I was taking a vacation instead. You guys won't believe the chaos that happened while I was gone. I just came back from my trip, and what I found back home got me frozen. I never expected things to escalate the way they did, but here we are. I still can't process how the only vacation I ever took turned into complete chaos, only because my family couldn't let me enjoy it in peace. Buckle up and let me tell you what happened already. First of all, Bali was incredible. 3 weeks of beaches, hiking, amazing food, and absolutely zero family drama.
Okay, what I do need
to avoid any chance of them tracking my location or activities. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely unreachable to them. I made new friends with this Australian couple at my resort who couldn't believe I'd never traveled before. Had a lot of funny stories over there, but anyway, that's not our topic. Let me get to the part you guys were waiting for. When I landed back home, I turned on my phone for the first time in weeks, and as expected, the bombardment was immediate. Hundreds of missed calls, voicemails, texts, and emails. I deleted them all without reading. Whatever crises they'd manufactured in my absence were no longer my problem. But something felt off when I got to my apartment building. The front desk guy gave me this weird look. Glad you're back, man. Your family's been causing scenes here almost daily. Great. Just what I was asking for. The moment I opened my door, I knew something was seriously wrong. Someone had broken into my apartment. Yeah, let's act like we don't know who. Drawers were pulled out, the closet emptied, furniture moved. Then I realized they had a key. How did I miss that? I remembered my mom had guilted me into giving her a spare for emergencies years ago. I'd completely forgotten about it in my rush to get away. The first thing I noticed, my laptop was gone. And not just gone, they'd taken it and returned it. I could tell because all my files had been accessed recently. Next, my filing cabinet was a mess, important documents strewn everywhere. My social security card was missing, my birth certificate gone. But that wasn't even the worst part. I checked my desk, where I kept my emergency cash, $2,500 in a locked, fireproof box for genuine crises. The box was still there, but empty. The key had been in my socket.
Okay, we'll put the some hotels over here too. Wait. First.
Two were maxed out already, and a loan application was pending with my information. They'd stolen my identity while I was gone for almost 1 month. That's all it took them. I called the police immediately, filed a report for theft and identity fraud. Next, I called my bank. Thank God I'd had the foresight to set up two-factor authentication before leaving. They'd tried to access my accounts multiple times, but couldn't get past the security checks sending codes to my international phone number. The bank flagged the attempts as suspicious and locked everything down tighter. I spent the next 3 days in absolute hell, calling credit bureaus, filing fraud alerts, disputing charges, and documenting everything. The Identity Theft Protection Service I signed up for confirmed my suspicions. The applications all came from my parents' IP address and were filled out using Carmen's laptop. They hadn't even tried to hide it. Why? Because they never expected me to actually take it this far. I called my cousin Toby and filled him in on everything. Toby was quiet for a minute. They've been telling everyone you abandoned them without warning. Your mom's been playing the victim card hard, posting on Facebook about how they're struggling to make ends meet with medical bills. Let me guess. They haven't mentioned stealing my identity or robbing my apartment? Shockingly, no, Toby laughed. But here's something you should know. Carmen's been bragging to my wife's cousin about getting back at you. Said something about teaching you a lesson about family loyalty. She's not exactly keeping it secret in certain circles. Perfect. I spent the next week securing everything, changed the locks, set up cameras inside my apartment, gathered all the evidence of the fraud and theft. Then I got a text from my dad.
Sammy, welcome in. Guess who's playing Pokemon Shining Pearl? And yes, I chose Chimchar. Aww, so cute.
So they were moving to workplace threats now. Nice. I didn't respond.
Okay, so I guess we'll see how this goes now.
Heads up that my deranged family might try to cause problems.
Okay, we'll put a
Your work speaks for itself, but thanks for the warning.
we'll do an amenity over here.
To the police station with my completed evidence file. The detective assigned to my case started flipping through my meticulous documentation.
Okay, we'll do that.
We'll be making arrests within 48 hours.
Figure, we'll do the aquarium. It actually works out really well that way.
You know the best thing
Okay, we'll do
town, nothing stays hidden. Carmen's precious social media imploded as followers, mostly college acquaintances who heard everything through Instagram gossip, realized her luxury lifestyle was built on theft and fraud. My parents' friends started distancing themselves as the details came out. Now, look, I won't bore you with the whole legal process, but in the end, their defense was pathetic. We were just taking what he owed us for raising him. The judge didn't buy it, and neither did the jury. My parents got probation and mandatory financial counseling, thanks to their age and clean prior records. Carmen wasn't so lucky. Her old shoplifting charge and the laptop evidence earned her 18 months. Her tearful courtroom meltdown about her influencer career being ruined didn't help. The restitution order was the best part. They have to pay back everything they stole, plus damages for the identity theft. Every month, a check comes to me instead of from me. How's that for karma? Now, I'm planning to move out of that apartment as soon as my lease is up. I've already started looking for a house in a different neighborhood with good security and no spare keys given to anyone. My credit's recovering slowly, and I'm finally building savings for the first time in my adult
We'll
life.
do one more
My parents worshipped
hotel
my
over
twin sister
here.
and treated me like I was nothing, so I vanished at 18. But what happened next shattered their perfect illusion. Growing up, I never really felt like I belonged in my
We'll do it
family.
this way so
I
they
had
can
one sister.
see out.
We're not identical, and trust me, you'd never guess we're related just by looking at us. She's like one of those girls you see on Instagram, always looking perfect, blonde, tall, pretty much the whole package. Meanwhile, I'm 5'2" with brown hair and look more like the before picture in those makeover shows. It's not like I'm fishing for compliments or anything. It's just the reality I grew up with. People always saw her first, and that includes my parents. From the time we were little, it was pretty
Okay.
obvious who the star of the family was. Jenny was always front and center in every photo, every family video, and every memory we seemed to make. I was just there.
Sweet.
I guess I kind of got used to it, but it hurt. I think the worst part was that no one even seemed to notice. Not my parents, not my friends, no one.
Okay, we'll do a couple more emergency shelters. Wait, did I do everything lagoon-wise? Yeah, because the hatchery's right there. Okay,
and talking about how beautiful she looked. Me? They gave me a gift card to Target and said I could pick out something for myself if I wanted. That was kind of the norm for me, always getting the leftovers. Jenny, on the other hand, was the kind of person people just wanted to be around. She could walk into a room and instantly everyone would gravitate toward her. It wasn't that I hated her for it, well, maybe a little. But what really got to me was how our parents fed into it. They loved how much attention she got, how she always seemed to be the center of everything. I think they started seeing me as more of a background character in my own life. I was always more
then
on the
we'll
quiet
do
side. I didn't mind
a...
reading a book or just hanging out by myself. But even when I did try to get some attention, it felt like I was always being compared to Jenny. If she was wearing
We'll do a couple response teams over here.
"Doesn't Jenny look amazing in that? Maybe you should try dressing like her." Or when we'd go to family events, they'd gush over how she was growing up to be so beautiful and successful, then glance at me like I was just tagging along for the ride. I think it was around middle school that I really started to notice how different things were for us. Jenny got all the support, whether it was for her cheerleading, friends, or whatever she wanted to do. Our parents were at every single one of her games, sitting front and center, cheering her on like she was about to win the Olympics. Meanwhile, I was on the track team, running my heart out at meets, and not once did they come to watch me, not even once. I'll never forget this one time when I had a big race. I was so excited because I'd been
Okay, we'll
training
do
for weeks,
an emergency
and I really wanted to
shelter
show them what I could
here.
do. I told them about it, made sure they knew
Actually,
exactly
we'll
where
do...
it was, and even asked if they could bring a camera to get some pictures.
maybe.
Well, the day came, and I looked into the stands before my race started. Guess what? They weren't there. Later, I found out they were at one of Jenny's cheerleading practices. Not even a competition, a practice. That's when I realized how much they just didn't care.
Okay.
It wasn't just the attention either. The way they spent money on us made it even more obvious. If we were going shopping, Jenny would always get the expensive stuff. Designer clothes, new shoes, the works. I'd get the basics. Whatever was left after they spent most of the budget on her. I remember asking my mom why I couldn't get the same things, and she literally told me, well, people know Jenny more, so she needs to look nicer. It was like they didn't even care how it made me feel. I was just there to fill space. Looking back, it's no wonder I felt like I didn't matter. I tried to ignore it for a long time, telling myself that maybe I was just overreacting or being too sensitive. But it wasn't just me. Everyone around us treated Jenny like she was the sun, and I was just some random planet circling around her. The worst part was that I started believing it. I thought maybe I wasn't worth as much because I wasn't as pretty or popular. Maybe if I tried harder, they'd notice me. I started putting in extra effort at school, getting good grades, hoping they'd finally give me the same kind of attention they gave Jenny. But it didn't work. Even when I brought home straight A's, all I got was a pat on the back.
How do I
They
add
still
dinosaurs?
how Jenny was voted most likely to succeed in her yearbook. I can't lie, it really messed with my head. I'd see other families where siblings were treated equally, and I couldn't help but wonder why mine wasn't like
How
that.
to add
I didn't have to work
dinosaur.
so hard just to get a fraction of the attention
How do I do
she
it?
got without even trying. It got to a point
Let me
where
look
I
real
just
quick.
started pulling
Let me
away.
look.
I'd spend more time in my room, avoiding family dinners or gatherings where I knew Jenny would be the center of attention. I didn't hate her, but I definitely resented the way things were. It's hard not to when you feel invisible next to someone who's shining so brightly.
By
There's this
default,
one
with the
memory that still
creative
sticks with me. It
sandbox
was the
settings.
summer
If you
before
play
we
with the
started high school.
standard
My
setting,
mom had taken us shopping for school clothes, and as usual, Jenny got this whole new wardrobe, brand
Okay.
names, all the latest
Hang on.
trends. When it was my turn,
My hair's
I ended up
pissing
with
me
a
off.
couple of t-shirts and jeans from the clearance rack. I asked my mom why Jenny got so much more, and she just shrugged and said, well, you don't really care about clothes as much as Jenny does.
Okay.
That's when I knew for sure that nothing was ever going to change. Growing up in Jenny's shadow wasn't just about her being prettier or more popular. It was about how my parents constantly showed me, in a million little ways, that she mattered more. No matter what
We'll
I did, I was always
do
going to be second best. It wasn't just one thing that pushed me
first
over the edge.
part.
It was like a bunch of little moments piling up until it became too much. I hit a breaking point when I turned 18, but let me walk you through how that actually happened. Growing up with Jenny was tough, but when we hit high school, it got way worse. By then, she had this huge friend group, and I was still the awkward, quiet one. I never really fit in, no matter how hard I tried. It was like everyone knew I was Jenny's sister, but no one cared to know me. I think my parents expected me to just blend into the background while Jenny shined. And
okay, let's try this.
I figured, why fight it? They weren't going to change, and neither was she. But by senior year, I was getting ready to leave. I'd been planning it for a while. I didn't tell anyone, not even my friends. I didn't want to risk my parents finding out before I was ready. I was working part-time at a local coffee shop, and I saved up every penny I could. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get me out. I knew I couldn't rely on my parents to help me out once I left, so I had to do it on my own. Anyway, the breaking point came on my 18th birthday. My parents decided to throw a joint party for me and Jenny, like they always did. But of course, it felt like the party was more for her than for me. They had invited all of her friends, most of whom barely knew I existed, and all the attention was on her again. I remember standing in the corner of our backyard, watching everyone fawn over Jenny in her new designer dress, taking selfies and laughing with her friends. Meanwhile, I was stuck in this old dress I had bought from the clearance rack at some department store. I looked down at the cake. Jenny's name was written first in big fancy letters, mine tucked away in the corner like an afterthought. I tried to stay positive. I mean, it was my birthday too, right? Maybe they had planned something special for me. But when it came time to open presents, the difference between how they treated us became impossible to ignore. Jenny went first, and of course, she was showered with gifts, clothes, makeup, a brand new purse from some designer brand I can't even pronounce. Then it was my turn. I didn't expect much, but what I got made my stomach drop. My parents handed me a $100 gift card to a bookstore. Don't get me wrong, I love books. But it was hard to ignore the fact that Jenny had just unwrapped a $1,000 gift card to her favorite boutique. They tried to justify it by saying, well, you like reading, so we thought this would be perfect for you. I nodded, said thanks, but inside I was boiling. It wasn't about the gift card itself, it was about what it represented. I felt like they were telling me I wasn't worth the same, that I wasn't important enough to get more than $100 while Jenny got 10 times that. It was a slap in the face. After the party ended, I went up to my room and packed. I didn't want to waste any more time. I'd been saving for months, and now that I was officially 18, nothing was stopping me. I didn't tell my parents that night. I just packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and planned to leave first thing in the morning. The next day, I woke up early, hoping to leave before anyone else got up. But of course, nothing goes according to plan. As I was heading down the stairs, my dad caught me. "Where are you going with all that?" he asked, eyeing the suitcases. I froze for a second, then took a deep breath. "I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore." My dad's face shifted from confusion to shock. "What are you talking about? You're 18 now. We can help you with college, with whatever you need. You don't have to do this." I looked him in the eye and said, "Help me? Like you've helped me all these years, I don't think so." My voice was shaking, but I kept going. "You've made it pretty clear where I stand in this family, and I can't do it anymore. I'm done being the second choice." He didn't know what to say. He just stood there, speechless. My mom must have heard the commotion because she came into the room next, looking just as confused. I repeated myself, "I'm leaving." My mom tried to play the guilt card. "You can't just leave us like this. We love you. We're your family." I laughed. It wasn't funny, but I couldn't help it. "Family? You've treated Jenny like gold, and I've been treated like I don't matter. I'm done." They both tried to convince me to stay, but I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let them talk me out of it. I grabbed my suitcases and walked out the front door, leaving behind everything I knew. I didn't have much of a plan, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going back. I got on a bus that morning and headed to a small town about 4 hours away. It wasn't fancy or anything, but it was far enough that I didn't have to worry about running into anyone I knew. I found a cheap apartment. Honestly, it was more like a shoebox with a bed, but it was mine, and that's all I cared about. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was free. I didn't have to live in Jenny's shadow anymore. I didn't have to deal with the constant comparison, the favoritism, the feeling of being invisible. I was on my own now, and that scared me, but it also felt really good. I spent the next few weeks getting settled into my new life. I got a part-time job at a grocery store and tried to figure out what I wanted to do next. My parents kept calling and texting, but I ignored every message. I wasn't ready to talk to them. Honestly, I didn't even know if I wanted to talk to them ever again. Every day, I felt a little stronger. I was finally starting to figure out who I was, away from my family, away from the shadow of Jenny. It wasn't easy, but I was proud of myself for taking that step. I didn't have a lot of money, but I had peace of mind, and that was worth more than anything they could have given me. Looking back, walking out that door was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't just about leaving my parents, it was about choosing myself for the first time in my life. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to face it on my own terms. After I left home, there was this eerie silence that followed. I guess I expected something dramatic, like my parents showing up at my new place or bombarding
Oh, I
me
need
with
expedition
nonstop
center.
calls, but that
Duh.
didn't happen. I guess part of me was relieved that they didn't try to drag me back. Another part, though, kind of wondered if they even really cared. The first few days after
I'll be honest, it kind of sounds like OP might be dramatic a little bit.
with a bed and a leaky faucet, but it was mine. I remember
What's
sitting there in
good,
the car thinking,
Kangos?
what now?
Is
It
that
wasn't
you,
like I was
Donut?
afraid.
Welcome in.
I just wanted to get
That
away.
sounds like a
Once
donut
you
type
left, what's
response.
next? I spent a lot of time thinking about that, especially in the early days when it was just me and the silence. I didn't have much money, but I managed to get a part-time job at a grocery store to keep myself afloat. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. It kept me busy too, which I needed. Too much free time meant too much thinking, and I wasn't ready to deal with all the emotions that came with leaving my family behind for the first
Let's
few
do
months.
some
Attempts my
herbivores.
parents made to contact me. They called, texted, even tried emailing, but I wasn't having any of it. I had blocked them on social media, changed my phone number, and even told the landlord not to give out my info if anyone came asking for me. I was serious about cutting ties. But the silence? Yeah, that part was hard. I thought it would be freeing, and in a way it was. I didn't have to deal with being compared to Jenny every second of the day, and I could finally breathe. But at the same time, there was this lingering emptiness I didn't expect. I didn't expect to miss them, but there it was, gnawing at me. Not enough to go back, but enough to make me wonder what the hell I was supposed to do now. I spent a lot of time alone during those months, thinking about everything. It was kind of like going over the past, trying to make sense of it all. I'd sit there, playing back old memories, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Why was Jenny always the favorite? Why did I never seem to measure up, no matter what I did? One day, out of nowhere, I started seeing a therapist. I figured I might as well talk to someone, even if I wasn't ready to talk to my family. I wasn't looking for some big breakthrough or anything. I just needed to understand why everything still hurts so much, even after I'd gotten away. Therapy wasn't some magic fix, but it did help me see things a little more clearly. I started to realize that the problem wasn't just with Jenny or my parents. It was how they made me feel about myself. I had spent so many years believing that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't as important, that I had kind of internalized it. I mean, if your own family treats you like you don't matter, how are you supposed to believe anything else? The more I talked through it, the more I began to understand that their treatment of me wasn't a reflection of who I was. It was a reflection of them. They had their own issues, their own reasons for playing favorites, but that didn't mean I was less valuable because of it. It took a long time for me to wrap my head around that. I think it's something I'll always struggle with on some level. During that first year away, I didn't make any big moves. I kept my head down, worked my shifts, and stayed quiet. I had a few friends, but I wasn't exactly out living life to the fullest. Most of the time, I just kept to myself. I needed the space. I needed the time to process everything, even if that meant spending a lot of nights just staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever really feel normal again. Meanwhile, Jenny was living her life too. I hadn't spoken to her since I left, and to be honest,
I really
I
don't
didn't
want to.
expect
I really
figured
don't
she
want to
was
deal
off
with.
to college or
Oh, I
something,
want those. I want
probably
those.
still being the golden child
Give
in
me
my parents'
Duckmen.
eyes. I didn't hate her anymore. I think I had stopped hating her the moment I walked out the door. It wasn't really her
Or
fault.
Hadasaur. I'd be okay with that.
I think I had blamed her for so long that I didn't even realize how messed up the situation really was. She was just playing the role they gave her. There was this one night, maybe 6 or 7 months after I left, where I almost picked up the phone. My dad had sent this long email, something about how they missed me and how they just wanted to talk. For a second, I thought about replying. I thought about giving him a chance to explain, maybe even patch things up. But then I remembered all the years of being second best, all the times they ignored me or brushed me off, and I just couldn't do it. Instead, I deleted the email. It wasn't the time for me to forgive or forget. I still wasn't sure if I
I
even
think OP might be a little bit dramatic with this scenario. I haven't been, like, paying hardcore attention.
So I kept the silence going. It was better that way. I wasn't ready to face them, and I didn't owe them anything. Not yet. As the months went by, I started to feel a little more settled in my new life. I wasn't exactly happy, but I wasn't miserable either. I guess that's progress, right? I worked my shifts, made some new friends, and started to feel like I could breathe again. Slowly, I started to build something for myself, even if it was just small steps. It felt good to be in control of my own life for once, but every now and then I'd think about them. My parents, Jenny, the life I left behind. I wondered what they were doing, if they had finally realized how much they had screwed up. I wondered if they missed me as much as they claimed, or if they were just trying to clear their conscience. It was hard to say. What I did know was that I wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. I had a lot of healing to do, and that was going to take time, maybe a lot of time. For now, the silence was exactly what I needed. So, fast forward to almost 2 years after I left home. By that point, I had pretty much settled into my new life. It wasn't glamorous or anything. I was still living in that tiny apartment, working my grocery store job and keeping to myself. I had made a few friends, but nothing too close. Mostly, I just kept my head down and focused on building something, anything that felt like mine. Then one day, out of the blue, and I know I said I wouldn't use that phrase, but seriously, this came from nowhere. I got a message from my dad on Facebook. I almost didn't open it. My first reaction was just to delete it and keep moving on with my life. But something made me stop. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I just wanted to see what he had to say. So I clicked on it. It was a long message. One of those where you can tell someone put a lot of thought into it. My dad apologized, and I mean really apologized, for how they had treated me. He admitted that they played favorites with Jenny and how unfair it had been to me. He even said that he and my mom had been talking, and they realized how much they had messed up. He said they wanted a chance to start over, to try and rebuild our relationship. He asked if I would come over for dinner sometime so we could talk face to face. Now, here's the thing. For years, all I ever wanted was an apology. I spent so much time waiting for them to realize how much they hurt me, how invisible they made me feel. But when I finally got it, it didn't feel like this huge weight lifting off my shoulders. It didn't feel like the big moment I had imagined in my head. Honestly, it just felt weird. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Should I be happy, relieved, angry? I wasn't sure. I just knew that it wasn't as simple as, oh, they apologized, so everything's fine now.
Oh,
Far
shit.
from it. Part of me wanted to respond right away and tell them exactly how much they had hurt me, how it wasn't going to be that easy to make things right. But another part of me didn't even want to bother. I'd spent 2 years without them, building my own life, and I didn't know if I was ready to let them back in, even if they were sorry. I talked to my therapist about it during our next session. I laid it all out, the message, the apology, everything. She told me something that really stuck with me. She said, you're not obligated to forgive them just because they apologized. You get to decide what happens next. It's about what you need, not about what they want. That hit me hard.
Am I making it or losing? I can't tell.
Into anything, and I didn't owe them forgiveness just because they asked for it. Still,
Okay,
it wasn't
making
easy to
right
figure
now.
out what to do. I spent the next few days going back and forth in my head. Should I reply? Should I ignore it? What would happen if I gave them another chance? Would things really be different? Or would it be the same old story with them favoring Jenny and me getting the scraps? I tried to imagine what it would be like, sitting across from my parents at the dinner table after everything that had happened. What would we even talk about? Would they try to justify their actions, or would they just sweep it under the rug like they always did? I didn't know if I had it in me to go through all that. At the same time, I couldn't help but think about the chance to get some closure. Maybe I could finally get some answers, or at least say my piece. So after a lot of thinking, and probably overthinking, I decided to respond. I kept it short. I told my dad that I appreciated the apology, but if we were going to have any kind of relationship, I needed more than just a dinner invitation. I needed real answers. I needed to understand why they had treated me the way they did, and I wasn't willing to meet up unless they were ready to have that honest conversation. I hit send and then I waited. I didn't know what to expect. Would they respond right away? Would they ignore me? I had no idea. But the next day, I got a reply from my dad. He said he understood and that they were willing to be open about everything. He said they'd answer whatever questions I had, no matter how hard it might be. That's when I realized I was at a crossroads. This was my chance to confront them, to finally hear the truth about why things had been the way they were. But I still wasn't sure if I was ready for it. There was a part of me that was scared to hear their answers, scared that it wouldn't give me the closure I thought I needed. What if they said something that made it worse? What if the truth was even uglier than I had imagined? I kept going back and forth in my head. Was this really the right time to have that conversation? Was I strong enough to face them after everything that had happened? I had worked so hard to build my own life, and I didn't want to risk undoing all that progress just because I was curious about what they had to say. But at the same time, I knew that if I didn't confront this now, it would keep eating away at me. So, after a few more therapy sessions and a lot of soul-searching, I made a decision. I told my dad that I would come to dinner, but only if they were serious about answering my questions. No more excuses, no more pretending. I wanted the truth, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less. The day I sent that message, I felt this weird combination of relief and dread. I knew there was no turning back now. Whatever happened next, I was going to have to face it head on. I wasn't sure what the outcome would be. but I knew that it was something I had to do for myself, not for them. And so I waited. For the first time in years, I was about to face my parents again. I didn't know what was going to happen, but one thing was clear. This was going to be a turning point, one way or another. So, after all that thinking, I finally agreed to meet my parents. We set a date for dinner, and I was dreading it, like the kind of dread that sits in the pit of your stomach and just gnaws at you. I kept going over different scenarios in my head, what they'd say, how I'd react, whether I'd lose my cool or stay calm. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I knew I had to do it for me, not for them. The day came, and I almost bailed. I had my phone in my hand, thumb hovering over the cancel button, but something stopped me. Maybe it was that little voice in the back of my head that kept reminding me why I needed this. So, I didn't cancel. I got in my car, drove to their house, and parked outside for a good 10 minutes, just sitting there, trying to breathe. It felt weird being there again. The place hadn't changed at all, same porch, same front yard, even the same old rocking chair my dad used to sit in. I sat there thinking, what the hell am I doing? But I knew if I didn't go in now, I never would. So, I forced myself out of the car, walked up to the front door and rang the bell. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the anxiety bubbling up. The door opened, and there they were, my parents, looking older than I remembered. My mom smiled, kind of a nervous smile, and my dad stepped aside to let me in. Walking into that house was like stepping into a time warp. Everything looked exactly the same. The family photos were still on the wall, most of them of Jenny, of course. It was like I'd never left, and for a second, that really messed with me. It made me realize just how much I had changed, even if they hadn't. We sat down at the dining table, the same one where I'd spent so many dinners feeling invisible. My mom had made spaghetti, my favorite when I was a kid, but the smell just made me feel uneasy. It was like they were trying too hard to make it seem normal, like I was just coming over for a casual family dinner. But we all knew that wasn't the case. I didn't say much at first. My dad started with some small talk, asking how I'd been, how work was, that kind of thing. But I wasn't there for that. I didn't want to pretend like everything was fine. So, after a few minutes, I just came out with it. Look, I didn't come here to chit-chat. I came because I need answers. The room got quiet real quick. My dad looked at me, kind of surprised, but he nodded. We owe you that, he said. You're right. I didn't waste any time. I just asked the question that had been burning in my mind for years. Why? Why did you always treat me like I didn't matter? Why was Jenny always the favorite? My mom's face fell, and she started to tear up. She looked at my dad like she didn't know where to begin. My dad cleared his throat and started talking. He said that when they had us, me and Jenny, they weren't prepared for twins. They only wanted one kid, and when they found out there were two of us, they panicked. He admitted that they just didn't know how to handle it, so they focused on the one that seemed easier, Jenny. I sat there, stunned. Easier? You treated me like I was some kind of problem because I wasn't as outgoing or pretty as Jenny? My dad sighed. It wasn't like that. Well, maybe it was. We didn't mean for it to be that way, but over time we just fell into this pattern of giving Jenny more attention. She was always in the spotlight, and we didn't realize how much we were neglecting you. I didn't know what to say. I mean, I had figured it was something like that, but hearing him say it out loud, it hurt in a way I wasn't ready for. My mom finally spoke up. She was crying at this point, her voice shaky. We were wrong. We were so wrong, and we didn't see it until after you left. We thought you were fine. You were always so independent, and Jenny, well, she needed us more. I couldn't help but laugh, even though nothing about this was funny. Needed you more? You're telling me that I didn't need my own parents because I didn't ask for as much? Because I didn't need you to coddle me the way you did with her? My mom just cried harder, and my dad put his head in his hands. We failed you, he said. We see that now, and we're sorry. We're so sorry. I sat there, feeling all the anger and hurt bubbling up inside me. I wanted to yell, to scream at them for everything they'd done, but at the same time, I was exhausted. I had spent so long carrying this weight, and I wasn't sure if yelling at them was going to make it any lighter. I took a deep breath. It's
Okay.
not just about being sorry, I said. It's about understanding how much damage you did. You spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't... My
Let's
parents
listen to
kicked
this
me
one.
out to make room for my brother's dream after used me like an ATM, so I walked out and watched their world crumble without me. I'm a 27-year-old male, and up until a few months ago, I was basically an ATM for my entire family. It wasn't a role I signed up for, but somehow I ended up trapped in this situation for years. I finally hit my breaking point last Thanksgiving. Some backstory, I grew up in a lower middle-class neighborhood in Ohio. It was nothing fancy, just a regular 3-bedroom ranch house in the suburbs. My dad worked as a truck driver, usually gone 4 to 5 days a week on long hauls. My mom had a part-time gig at an insurance office doing admin work. We weren't poor enough to qualify for assistance, but we definitely had to watch our spending. No new clothes until the old ones had holes. No eating out unless it was
Okay,
someone's
they need
birthday.
more amenities.
I had an
So
older
let's
brother, Ethan, a
do.
30-year-old male who was
Oh
a
yes,
football player.
absolutely. Let's
He
do a
was a baseball
restroom.
star in high school, but peaked at 18 and never accomplished much after that. He got a partial scholarship to a state college, but dropped out after 2 semesters because the professors were out to get him. Then there's my little sister, Megan, a 19-year-old female, the baby of the family who somehow gets whatever she wants despite our supposedly tight finances. I was always the responsible one. I got decent grades, held down part-time jobs since I was 16, and went to community college for IT because it was what we could afford. I wasn't exceptional at anything, but I was reliable. Maybe that was my first mistake. Everything changed dramatically when Dad hurt his back in a loading accident 4 years ago. He was helping unload his truck when something slipped, and boom, 2 herniated discs. He claimed he was waiting for a workers' compensation settlement that never seemed to actually materialize. There was always some excuse: paperwork issues, lawyer problems, insurance company delays. I had just landed a decent IT job after finishing my associate's degree, making about $68,000 a year. It wasn't amazing money, but it was decent for someone my age in our area. When Dad's injury happened, I still lived at home, saving for my own place. I was paying $500 a month in rent to my parents, which seemed fair at first. I chipped in a bit extra here and there, grabbed groceries when the fridge was empty, and covered the electric bill when Mom mentioned it was overdue. Totally normal stuff that any decent son would do when his family hits a rough patch, right? But soon it morphed into something else entirely. Jake, the mortgage is due and we're short this month. Jake, the car payment is 3 days late. We need $420 by tomorrow. Jake, Megan needs a new laptop for school. Before I knew what was happening, I was dropping $2,500 to $3,000 every month on my family's expenses, while still living in what was essentially my childhood bedroom. Meanwhile, Ethan had moved into the finished basement, which had its own bathroom and a separate entrance. He'd bounced between minimum wage jobs, never lasting more than a few months at any of them. He'd contribute nothing to household expenses, claiming he was building his music career, translation, playing guitar badly in his room and occasionally posting awful covers on YouTube. Mom and Dad never pressed him on it, just like they never commented on the weed smell constantly drifting up from the basement. Fast forward to this past Thanksgiving. We're all sitting around the table. Mom made the whole spread: turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, the works. I had paid for all of it, of course, including the fancy organic turkey Mom insisted on getting. $85 for a bird. Are you kidding me? Dad was watching football on his phone between bites. Ethan was texting someone and ignoring everyone. Megan was posting Instagram stories of the food I'd paid for, with captions like "blessed" and "family time." I was exhausted from a brutal week at work, where I'd pulled 3 late nights fixing a server issue. All I wanted was to enjoy a meal I'd financed and maybe feel appreciated for once. That's when it happened. As I was reaching for another roll, Dad cleared his throat and announced, "Jake's been living here rent-free for too long now." I nearly choked. "Excuse me?" Mom nodded like this had been rehearsed. "We've been talking about this, honey. You're 27 now. It's time for you to get your own place and start living like an adult." I put down my fork before I stabbed someone with it. "What are you talking about? I pay rent. I've been paying rent." "Well, yes," Mom said. "But you stopped the regular $500 payments about 2 years ago." Was she serious? Because I started paying the mortgage instead. And the utilities, and the groceries, and basically everything else around here. Ethan snorted, not even looking up from his phone. "Dude, it's pathetic you're still living in Mom and Dad's house at your age. I'd literally die of embarrassment." This coming from the unemployed 30-year-old who hadn't contributed a dime to household expenses in his entire adult life. The basement comment was especially rich since he occupied the finished basement with its own mini fridge and TV setup, while I was in my old 10 by 12 bedroom with the same furniture I'd had since middle school. "I pay to live here," I said, my voice getting louder. "I pay more than what living here is worth." Dad waved his hand dismissively. "That's not the point. A man your age needs his own place. Your mother and I think it's time." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. "Let me get this straight. I cover the $1,850 mortgage, the $300 electric bill, the $180 internet and cable package you insisted on for, your sports channels, groceries that run $900 a month because Ethan eats like a horse, and $3,000 toward Megan's community college, and I'm the one who needs to move out? What about him?" I jabbed my fork in Ethan's direction. "Your brother is going through a transitional period," Mom said defensively. "His music career is about to take off. He just needs time." "He's been transitional for 12 years, I said. "When does he have to transition into being an actual adult?" Ethan finally looked up from his phone. Screw you, man. Not everyone wants to be a corporate sellout drone like you. Dad pointed at me. Watch your tone. Your brother is following his passion. And anyway, this isn't about Ethan. This is about you needing your own space. My own space? I repeated in disbelief. Or you wanting my money without having to see my face every day? The table went silent. Dad's face turned red. Megan finally looked up from her phone, sensing drama worth paying attention to. How dare you, Mom said in a low voice. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me lately, I asked. Please enlighten me, because from where I'm sitting, I've been carrying this entire household for years while getting nothing but criticism in return. Mom sighed dramatically, giving me that condescending look she'd perfected over the years. No one's saying you don't help out, Jake, but this is about your independence. We're only thinking of what's best for you. Best for me, I nearly shouted. Or best for you? The table went silent again. Megan was recording everything on her phone now, probably for her stupid TikTok. That's when it hit me like a freight train. They hadn't thought once about what would happen after I left. They'd gotten so comfortable with me handling all the bills that they just assumed the money would keep coming in even after they kicked me out. They wanted me gone but still paying for everything. The audacity was breathtaking. I sat there, steam practically coming out of my ears, thinking about everything I'd given up for these people. When I graduated from community college, I had the opportunity to transfer to a 4-year university with a decent scholarship. I turned it down because Dad got injured that same month, and I needed to start working full-time to help out temporarily. My education was sacrificed on the altar of family responsibility. When my friends were renting apartments downtown, going to concerts, and taking weekend trips, I was giving 70% of my paycheck to my family. I drove a 12-year-old Honda with 180,000 miles on it because every time I saved for a new car, some emergency came up. Last year, I had $8,000 saved for a down payment on a decent used car. Then Megan needed $7,500 for a study abroad program in Spain that was critical for her development. Mom and Dad couldn't say no to her. They never could. So guess who paid for it? I turned down a promotion that would have required relocating because the family needed me here. That job would have bumped my salary to $82,000, but I declined it because Mom cried about how they couldn't manage without me nearby. I broke up with my last girlfriend because she got tired of never going anywhere since I couldn't afford to take her out after paying my family's bills. She said I was being used, and I defended my family to her. What a fool I was. 4 years of my life gone. 4 years of building my career, my savings, my independence, sacrificed for people who now had the audacity to call me a freeloader. I took a deep breath, trying not to flip the entire table. Fine, I said, my voice suddenly calm. Mom's face relaxed, thinking she'd won. I know it seems scary, honey, but this is good for you. We can help you look for an apartment this weekend. There's that complex by the mall that seems nice. I nodded slowly. Don't bother. I'll start packing tonight. For the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered across her face. Dad was too focused on the game score to notice the shift in the room, and Ethan just mumbled, "Pass the gravy." The least you could do is not hog all the food too. I spent the rest of the meal in silence, mentally calculating how much money I had in savings. Not much, thanks to years of family emergencies, and where I could possibly go. The irony wasn't lost on me. They wanted me to move out, but because of them, I barely had enough for a security deposit on an apartment. After dinner, Mom tried to corner me in the kitchen. "Jake, honey, don't be so dramatic. We can talk about a timeline that works for everyone." "A timeline that works for everyone?" I repeated. "You mean a timeline that ensures you still get my money for as long as possible?" She had the decency to look embarrassed at least. "That's not what I meant. It's just a big change, and we should plan it properly." "Oh, I'll plan it properly," I said. "Don't worry about that." I barely slept that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, a lifetime of being the responsible one, while being treated like crap playing through my head on repeat. The next morning, I got up early, not because I planned to, but because anger and resentment make for excellent alarm clocks. I dug out my duffel bags and started throwing in clothes, electronics, and important paperwork. I didn't have much furniture. The bed, desk, and dresser in my room all belonged to the house, according to my parents, even though I'd actually bought the desk myself when I started working remotely twice a week. I started calculating costs in my head. First and last month's rent somewhere would be at least $2,000. A security deposit, another $1,000. Moving costs, setting up utilities, basic furniture. I had about $4,300 in savings, which wasn't much after 4 years of working a decent job. That's what happens when you're supporting 5 people on one income. Around 11 in the morning, Megan appeared in my doorway, still in her pajamas despite it being almost noon. She was scrolling through her phone but looking at me periodically from the corner of her eye. "You're seriously leaving?" she asked, trying to sound casual but failing. I zipped up a bag with more force than necessary. That's what they wanted. She leaned against the doorframe. "Mom said you'd get over it by morning." I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she did. She thinks I'm just throwing a temper tantrum. I mean, kind of. "You were pretty dramatic at dinner," she continued, scrolling through her phone as she spoke, not even bothering to look at me. "Dramatic? Are you kidding me?" I stopped packing and faced her. "Megan, do you have any idea how much money I've put into this household? How much I've sacrificed?" She shrugged. "I know you help out sometimes." "Sometimes?" I said. "I pay for everything, including your college, by the way." That $3,000 per semester doesn't appear out of thin air. She finally looked up from her phone, her expression a mix of confusion and dawning realization. "Wait, I thought Mom and Dad were paying for my classes." "Nope, that's all me. Just like the trip to Spain last summer. Just like the new iPhone you got for your birthday. Just like everything else around here." She stood there awkwardly for a minute. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. She was still a teenager, trapped in this toxic household. But then I remembered how she'd maxed out the credit card I'd foolishly added her to as an authorized user for emergencies only, buying $600 worth of clothes online. When I confronted her, she just shrugged and said, "You can afford it." "But if you leave, how will they pay for everything?" she asked, and I could see the gears turning in her head. "If I wasn't paying for her college anymore, what would happen to her?" "That's a great question," I said. "Maybe ask Ethan to contribute for once. Or Dad could try actually following up on that workers' compensation claim he's been talking about for 4 years. Or Mom could work full-time instead of part-time. Lots of options that don't involve exploiting me." "You're being so selfish," she said, her voice hardening. "Family is supposed to help each other." And there it was, the family mantra that had been used to manipulate me for years. Family goes both ways, Megan. It's not one person giving everything while everyone else takes. That's not family, that's parasitism. Her eyes widened, and for a second I thought I might have gotten through to her. But then she just scoffed, turned around, and walked away, tapping furiously on her phone, probably texting her friends about what a jerk her brother was being. I went back to packing, feeling a strange mix of anger, relief, and fear. I had no idea where I was going or how I was going to afford it, but I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't staying here another day. By noon, I had most of my stuff packed into bags and boxes. I made multiple trips, carrying things out to my car, and not once did anyone offer to help. Ethan was still asleep in the basement. Mom was too upset to come out of her room. Dad was in the garage looking for something, which was his code for avoiding confrontation. On my last trip down the stairs with a box of books, Mom finally emerged from her bedroom, makeup perfectly applied despite her emotional distress. Her eyes went to my box, and her expression changed from practiced sadness to alarm. "Wait,
Hello,
you're actually
Roxy.
leaving
Welcome
right now?"
in.
I
I'm
stared at
Jordan.
her.
Okay.
"Isn't that what last night was about?" She frowned. "Well, yes, but I thought we'd have time to, make arrangements." "I've made my arrangements," I lied. I had some money saved. Not much, but enough for a security
Come
deposit
on.
somewhere. I had a buddy who'd let me crash for a few days if needed. I'd figure it out. I pushed past her and headed for the front door. Just as I was about to step outside, Dad came in from the garage, hands surprisingly clean for someone who claimed to be rummaging around in there. "So, you're really doing this, huh? Running away when things get tough," he said, crossing his arms. I ignored him, balancing the box while trying to open the door. "Jake," Mom said, her voice taking on that fake sweet tone that always preceded a demand. "Before you go storming off, we need to discuss the household expenses." I turned back slowly. "What about them?" She spoke as if explaining something to a child. "Well, obviously we understand you're moving out, but we still need your help with the mortgage and utilities. You've been handling those for so long, and we just can't manage everything overnight. We thought you could send around $2,000 a month until we get things figured out." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now?" She looked genuinely surprised at my response. "There's no need for that tone. This is a reasonable request. We're your family." Dad stepped closer. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By leaving us high and dry? What kind of son does that?" That's when Ethan finally made his appearance, shuffling up from the basement in sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. "What's with all the noise? Some of us are trying to sleep." It was 12:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. "Jake thinks he's too good for this family now," Dad said, shaking his head. "Going to leave us to fend for ourselves while he goes and plays big shot. Ethan looked at me with contempt. Dude, that's cold. Mom and Dad gave you everything. I set the box down, afraid I might throw it at someone. They gave me nothing. I've been carrying this entire family for years while you sit on your ass playing video games and Dad watches sports all day instead of finding work. I'm injured, Dad shouted, pointing to his back. You think I want to be stuck at home? You think I don't want to be out on the road making money? I think it's convenient that your injury never seems to stop you from playing golf with Uncle Steve every Wednesday, I shot back. Or helping him move furniture last month. But somehow, it prevents you from getting any job at all for 4 straight years. Mom stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. This isn't helping. She turned to me, her expression softening into the manipulative look I knew all too well. Jake, honey, we're not asking for the world here. Just some help during the transition. You can still have your independence, your own place. We just need a little financial support until we adjust. How long is until you adjust? I asked. She hesitated. Well, until your father's settlement comes through, or until he's able to work again, or until Ethan's music career takes off. So, basically forever. Got it. No, I said, the word feeling strange and powerful in my mouth. I'm not giving you another dime. You ungrateful little, Dad started, stepping toward me. Mom put her hand on his arm. Don't, Robert. Then to me, Jake, please. We're not asking for everything, just enough to keep us afloat. You can afford it. You make good money. I make decent money that I work for, I said. And no, I can't afford to pay for 2 households. Not anymore. So that's it? Dad said. You're just going to abandon your family? Your mother who raised you? Your dad who put food on the table all those years? Your brother and sister?
I messed up.
I laughed outright. Oh, now I'm family? Now you acknowledge everything I've done? Funny how that only happens when you want something from me. Mom started tearing up, her go-to manipulation tactic. I'd seen it deployed on Dad, on teachers, on bill collectors, on anyone who wasn't giving her what she wanted. She daintily dabbed at the corner of her eye, careful not to smudge her mascara. Please, Jake, if you don't help us, we'll lose the house. They'll repossess the car. We could end up on the street. Not my problem, I said, surprising even myself with how cold my voice sounded. You made your choice last night. You wanted me gone, so I'm gone. This isn't what we meant, Mom cried, the tears flowing freely now. It's exactly what you meant, I snapped. You just didn't think through the consequences. You thought you could kick me out and keep taking my money. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. Dad's face was getting redder by the second. You listen here. No, you listen, I cut him off. For once in your life, you're going to hear me out. I have put my entire life on hold for this family. I've given up education, career advancement, relationships, any hope of building my own savings.
Hey guys, my
Also,
husband texted
maintain
me.
this facade of middle-class stability while doing absolutely nothing to contribute to it. And your response was to tell me I'm not welcome here anymore. They stared at me in shock. I'd never spoken to them like this before. I've enabled this dysfunctional situation for far too long, I continued. Well, it ends today. I'm leaving, and the Bank of Jake is officially closed. Figure it out yourselves. I picked up my box and headed for the door. Mom made one last desperate attempt. Jake, please, at least pay the mortgage this month, just to give us time. I turned back one last time. You know what? I've got a better idea. I'll leave you with the same thing you left me with all these years. Nothing but empty promises and guilt trips. And with that, I walked out, slamming the door so hard the cheap decorative mirror in the hallway fell and shattered. Fitting, really. That first week was rough, not going to lie. I crashed at my buddy Mike's apartment for 5 days, sleeping on his couch and feeling like a complete failure despite knowing I'd made the right choice. Mike was cool about it. He'd met my family a few times and always said they treated me like crap, but I still felt like I was imposing. I spent every waking hour apartment hunting and budgeting. It was shocking to realize how much more affordable life could be when I was only paying for myself. Eventually, I found a studio I could afford, about 30 minutes from work. It was small, just 480 square feet with a kitchenette and a bathroom where you could practically shower while sitting on the toilet. But it was mine. No one asking for money. No one guilting me into paying for stuff that wasn't my responsibility. The first month, I turned off notifications for my family's numbers. The calls and texts were non-stop. The mortgage is due. The electric company sent a final notice. Dad needs his medication, each one more desperate than the last. I finally looked at them all one night after a particularly rough day at work. There were 47 texts and 23 missed calls over a 2-week period. The tone evolved from angry, "You're abandoning your family," to guilt-tripping. Mom cried all night, to desperate, "They're going to shut off the water," to threatening, "You'll regret this when you have no family left." I blocked their numbers after that. I needed to focus on rebuilding my own life, not continuing to be emotionally manipulated from afar. After a while, the attempts to contact me stopped. I figured they'd found another solution. Maybe Ethan finally got a job, or Dad's workers' compensation came through, or they'd found another relative to leech off of. Then, about 2 months after I'd left, I ran into my old neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, at the grocery store. "Jake, I haven't seen you in ages. How are you?" We chatted for a minute before she dropped the bomb. "Your family's having quite a rough time, from what I hear. The bank put a foreclosure notice on the house last week." I nodded, feeling a weird mix of guilt and satisfaction. "Is that so?" "Oh, yes," she continued, apparently not noticing my lack of surprise. "Your mother's been telling everyone at church that you abandoned them, but between you and me, I always thought it was strange how you seem to be the only one working in that house. Your brother's car hasn't moved in weeks. I think it got repossessed. I saw your parents at the dollar store, buying ramen and mac and cheese in bulk. I felt a twinge of sympathy, especially for Megan, but then hardened my heart. They had made their bed, and now they were lying in it. When I got home, curiosity got the better of me, and I unblocked their numbers to check if there were any new messages. There were dozens from every member of my family, each more desperate than the last. From Dad, the bank's taking the house. This is on you. How can you sleep at night knowing your family is being thrown out on the street? From Mom, please, Jake, we're begging you. We need $3,200 by Friday, or we'll be evicted. I know we've made mistakes, but please don't punish your sister for our errors. From Ethan, you're dead to me, bro. Mom cries every night. Dad's back is worse from the stress. Hope you're happy in your fancy apartment while we're suffering. From Megan, I had to drop out of college because we can't afford it. Thanks a lot. My entire future is ruined because you're being selfish." Each message was designed to hit me where it hurt, to trigger that lifetime of conditioning that said family comes first, that I was responsible for everyone else's well-being. But something had changed in me. I could see the manipulation now, plain as day. I didn't respond to any of them. The crown jewel came 3 months after I'd left, when Dad showed up at my apartment. I have no idea how he found my address, probably through a mutual acquaintance or by following me from work. I opened the door to find him standing there, looking like hell. He'd lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. "Jake," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can I come in?" I crossed my arms, blocking the entrance. Why? To talk, man to man. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. He walked in, eyes darting around my small but clean apartment, taking in the modest furnishings I'd managed to acquire. A futon that doubled as my bed, a small dining table with 2 chairs, a TV stand with a 32-inch TV I'd found on sale. "Nice place," he mumbled, but I could hear the judgment in his voice. To him, this was probably pathetic compared to the 2,200 square foot house they were about to lose, the house I had been paying for. "What do you want, Dad?" He collapsed onto my futon without being invited. "We're screwed, son. Completely screwed. The bank's taking the house next week. Your mother's a mess. She's lost 15 pounds and had to start taking anxiety medication. Ethan's girlfriend kicked him out when he couldn't pay his share of her rent, so he's been sleeping in his car. Megan had to move in with her friend's family because we can't afford to feed her anymore." I didn't respond. I just stood there, waiting for him to get to the real reason for his visit. "I know we made a mistake," he continued, his voice softening. "We didn't appreciate what you were doing for us. We took advantage. I can see that now. Your mother and I have talked about it a lot. We were wrong to treat you that way." I almost believed him, until he got to the real reason for his visit. "I'm here to make things right," he said, leaning forward. "If you come back, things will be different. We'll respect you more. We'll appreciate everything you do. You want me to move back in? Well, yes. And help with the finances again. Just until we get back on our feet." I started laughing. I couldn't help it. "What's so funny?" he demanded. "You haven't learned a thing, have you? You're not sorry for how you treated me. You're sorry you lost your meal ticket." His face hardened. "Look at what you've done to this family." "I didn't do anything to this family. You did. You and Mom and Ethan with your endless entitlement. I just stopped enabling it." "So, you're just going to let us become homeless?" he shouted. "What kind of monster are you?" That's when I decided to really twist the knife. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I've got something to show you." I opened my banking app and turned the screen toward him. The balance showed $42,836.45. His eyes widened. "What the?" "That's what I've managed to save in just 3 months of not supporting you people," I said. 3 months. That's how much money you were bleeding from me. "So, you do have the money," he exclaimed. "You can save the house." I put my phone away. "I can, but I won't. Because you don't deserve it. Jake, I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I cut him off. And I realized something. You never wanted me to move out because you thought it was time or because it would be good for me. You wanted me out because you were embarrassed that your younger son was the provider. It hurt your ego that I was the man of the house in every way that counted. His face went red. That's not... It is. And you know what? It's not my job to save you from your own bad decisions anymore. I'm keeping my money. I'm building my life. And watching you finally face consequences is the best revenge I could have asked for. I stood up and walked to the door, opening it wide. Get out. He got up slowly, defeat evident in every movement. Your mother will be devastated. She'll survive, and if she doesn't, well, that's not my problem either. As he shuffled past me, he stopped for one last attempt. We're family, Jake. Blood. I looked him dead in the eyes. Not anymore. I slammed the door behind him and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Complete and total peace. It's been 6 months now. I heard through the grapevine that they lost the house and had to move into a crappy 2-bedroom apartment in the bad part of town. Dad finally got a job at a gas station, working the register. Guess his back miraculously healed when actual homelessness was on the line. Mom's working full-time at the insurance office now. Ethan had to take a job at a warehouse, loading trucks. Ironic, given Dad's injury. Megan's working at McDonald's instead of going to college. Meanwhile, I got that promotion I turned down years ago. My boss actually sought me out, saying they still needed someone with my skills and would I reconsider relocating. I'm making $88,000 now, with better benefits. I bought a decent used Mazda. I started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice to go out for dinner without worrying about whether I'll have enough left over to pay someone else's credit card bill. I'm taking a vacation to Colorado next month, my first actual vacation in years. I'm going to hike in the mountains, try some local craft beers, and not think about my family at all. Sometimes I feel a twinge of guilt, especially about Megan. She's young, and a lot of her entitled attitude was learned from watching our parents. But then I remember how none of them ever showed an ounce of appreciation for what I did, how they treated me like an ATM instead of a person, and the guilt vanishes. Megan reached out last week. Apparently, she broke up with her boyfriend and needed a place to stay. Guess where she thought she could crash, just until she finds a new apartment? Yup, with me. I offered to help her look for affordable housing and roommate situations instead. She called me a jerk and hung up. Some things never change. My parents used me like an ATM, believed my sister's lie, banned me from the family party, so I gave them the ending they never saw coming. I'm 32, male, working in tech in Seattle. My job's good. Steady pay, benefits, all that. I don't flaunt it, but I'm comfortable. Because I'm comfortable, I've always thought, why not help my family out when they need it? I mean, we're family, right? You're supposed to have each other's backs. So, over the years, I've been the guy who covers stuff. My parents need help with house repairs? I'm on it. Vanessa, my younger sister, needs money for her wedding? Sure, I can chip in. It's not like I minded at first. It felt good to know I was making life a little easier for them. But then there's Vanessa. Vanessa, 26, female, is married to Matt, who's basically just her echo chamber. She's working on some kind of psychology degree. Don't get me wrong, she's smart. But she's also the type of person who's really good at getting people to do what she wants. She's been my parents' golden child from day one. She's bubbly, charming, and always knows what to say to make people like her. Because of that, she's never had to take responsibility for anything. Growing up, it was pretty obvious who the favorite was. Vanessa always got the new clothes, the best toys, and the attention. Me? I was the older kid, the responsible one. My parents just assumed I didn't need as much, and I didn't complain. I worked part-time jobs through high school and college, saved my money, and stayed out of trouble. That was my role in the family, the quiet one who didn't ask for much. Vanessa, though, knew how to get what she wanted. When she turned 16, my parents said she needed a car, not wanted, needed. They didn't have the money to get her anything decent, so guess what? They asked me to chip in from my savings. I'd been working part-time at a hardware store, saving up for college, but my parents thought it'd be nice if I helped Vanessa out. I gave in. It wasn't like I had much of a choice, not when my mom was giving me her family should support each other speech. Vanessa got her car, a used sedan that wasn't fancy, but she loved it, and I moved on. Then, when it came time for her to go to college, she got into some fancy private school out of state. My parents couldn't afford it, so they asked me to help. This time, I was supposed to delay grad school so they could put money toward Vanessa's tuition. I pushed back, but again, the whole family support speech came out. Vanessa, of course, played her part perfectly, saying things like, I just want to make something of myself. And Dean, I promise I'll make it up to you someday. By the time Vanessa got married a few years later, I'd gotten used to the pattern. She wanted her dream wedding, and my parents couldn't afford all the extras, so they came to me. Dean, it's just a little bit for the flowers, they said. You don't want your sister to be disappointed on her big day, do you? I don't know why I kept agreeing to this stuff. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe I just didn't want to deal with the drama. Either way, I always stepped up. Over the years, I became the go-to guy for everything. Vanessa and my parents didn't even have to ask most of the time. They just assumed I'd help. Honestly, I didn't mind, at least not at first. I told myself it was fine because I was doing okay. I had a good job, and the money wasn't putting me in a bad spot. Plus, helping them out kept the peace. I figured as long as I wasn't struggling, why not? It's family. Still, no matter what
scary.
I did, it was never enough for them. I've hit every mark I could as a successful adult. Steady job, nice place to live, no debt. But it's like none of that matters because I don't fit their picture of what my life should look like. No wife, no kids, no perfectly staged holiday cards. My parents love to drop subtle digs about how they're still hoping for grandkids, or how it's not too late to settle down. Meanwhile, Vanessa could show up at Thanksgiving with her life in shambles, and they'd still be proud of her just for existing. It's like I'm only valuable when I'm making their lives easier, but when it comes to who I am, I'll never measure up. It's exhausting. The more I helped, the more they expected. It stopped being about whether I could afford to help and started being about whether I should. If I ever hesitated or said no, it turned into a guilt trip. Dean, don't you care about your family? Dean, you're doing so well. Why can't you just help out? It got to the point where I wasn't even being asked. I was being told. Vanessa never showed any gratitude. If anything, she acted like she was entitled to my help, like it was my job to make her life easier. She's always been good at spinning things, making herself look like the victim if I ever pushed back or tried to set a boundary. She'd turn it into a sob story about how hard her life was. My parents would eat it up, and I'd end up being the bad guy. It all came to a head this year. Looking back, I can't believe it took me so long to realize how bad things had gotten. I was so used to being the guy who kept everything running smoothly that I didn't notice how much I was being taken advantage of. But Vanessa finally went too far, and once she did, there was no coming back from it. About a week before Christmas, I got a call from my mom. At first, I didn't think much of it. Mom calling before the holidays was normal, and I figured it'd be something about Christmas dinner or maybe some small family drama. But as soon as I picked up, I could tell something was off. Her voice had that overly sweet tone she used when she was about to say something I wouldn't like. "Hi, honey," she started. "How are you?" I told her I was fine, and we exchanged the usual small talk for a minute or two. Then she dropped it. "Listen, Dean, we've been thinking. Maybe it's best if you don't come to Christmas this year." At first, I thought I misheard her. "Wait, what?" I asked. "Why wouldn't I come to Christmas?" "Well," she said, dragging out the word like she was trying to soften the blow, "Vanessa mentioned some things you've said recently, and we just don't want any negativity ruining the day." "Negativity?" I repeated. "What are you talking about?" "What did Vanessa say?" Mom hesitated for a second, like she wasn't sure if she should tell me. Then she sighed and said, "She told us you've been saying some pretty hurtful things about Christmas, that you hate spending money on gifts for the family and think our Christmases are a waste of time because they're all about her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice rising a little. "I never said anything like that." "Well," she said, sounding unsure, "Vanessa seemed pretty upset about it. She said you've been talking to people about how much you don't like our Christmases and how you don't think they're worth your time." I was stunned. Not only was this a blatant lie, but the fact that my mom believed Vanessa without even asking me about it hurt more than I expected. It wasn't the first time Vanessa had twisted things to make herself look good and me look bad, but this felt like a new low. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I don't know what Vanessa told you, but I never said anything like that. In fact, I've been planning what to get you and Dad for Christmas for weeks." "Well," she said again, in that way she does when she doesn't want to argue, "we just think it's better if you sit this one out. You've seemed a little distant lately, and we don't want any tension during the holidays." At that point, I realized there was no point in arguing. My mom had already made up her mind, and nothing I said was going to change it. "Fine," I said, keeping my tone short, "if that's what you want." She sounded surprised that I wasn't fighting her on it. "It's not about what we want, honey. We just think it's for the best." "Sure," I said, not bothering to hide the sarcasm. "Merry Christmas, Mom." Then I hung up. I sat there for a minute, just staring at my phone. I wasn't even angry, just tired. Tired of always being the one who had to explain himself, the one who had to defend himself against Vanessa's lies. It was like no matter what I did, I was always the bad guy in her story. The next day, I got a call from Vanessa. At first, I didn't even want to answer. I figured she'd probably call to gloat about how she'd gotten me uninvited. But a part of me was curious, so I picked up. "Hey, Dean," she said, her voice as cheerful as ever, like nothing had happened. What do you want, Vanessa? I said, not bothering to pretend I was happy to hear from her. She didn't even acknowledge my tone. So, listen, I need a little help, she said. My grad school tuition is due soon, and Mom and Dad can't really afford to help much right now. I was hoping you could pitch in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? I said. You just got me uninvited to Christmas, and now you're asking me for money?
Money.
Pause, like she hadn't expected me to bring that up. Oh, come on, Dean, she said finally, her tone light and dismissive. That's not what this is about. Christmas is one thing, but this is important. It's my education. I could feel my blood boiling, but I forced myself to stay calm. Vanessa, do you even hear yourself? You lied to Mom and Dad about me, got me kicked out of Christmas, and now you want me to pay for your tuition. Do you even care how messed up that sounds? She sighed, like I was the one being difficult. Dean, don't be so dramatic. Mom and Dad just wanted a peaceful Christmas, and you've been kind of negative lately. Besides, this isn't about Christmas. It's about helping your family. There it was, the guilt trip. Vanessa had perfected it over the years. Whenever she wanted something, she'd play the family card, like it was my job to fix all her problems just because we shared DNA. I'll think about it, I said, cutting her off before she could go any further. She seemed satisfied with that. Great, thanks, Dean. I knew I could count on you. After she hung up, I sat there for a while, just staring at my phone. The audacity was mind-blowing. Not only had Vanessa managed to turn my own family against me, but now she had the nerve to ask me for money like nothing had happened. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about Christmas or tuition. This was about years of being taken for granted, years of being expected to step up and help while Vanessa coasted through life with a smile and a sob story. I wasn't going to let it slide this time. The day after Vanessa called, I called my mom and told her we needed a family meeting. Me, you, Dad, Vanessa, and Matt, I said. We're sitting down tomorrow, and we're talking about this. Mom hesitated, like she always does when she thinks I'm about to disrupt the balance Vanessa's got her wrapped around. Dean, is this really necessary? I interrupted. I just got kicked out of Christmas because of something Vanessa said that isn't even true. We're going to talk about it. After a pause, she reluctantly agreed. Fine, tomorrow at 6. But Dean, please don't make this a big thing. Christmas is coming, and I don't want any stress in the air. I hung up without responding. If my own family didn't want me there for Christmas, I didn't see the point in pretending everything was fine. The next evening, I pulled up to my parents' house. It was the same place I'd grown up, but over the years, it had started to feel less like home and more like a place I was tolerated in. I didn't bother dressing up, just jeans and a hoodie. This wasn't about impressing anyone. When I walked in, Vanessa and Matt were already there. Matt gave me his usual awkward nod, the kind that said, I don't want to be involved in this. Vanessa didn't even look up from her phone. Typical. Mom came out of the kitchen, carrying a tray of coffee and cookies, like this was some kind of festive get-together. Hi, Dean, she said, forcing a smile. We were just getting settled. Great, I said, not bothering to fake any pleasantry. Let's get started. Dad was in his recliner, arms crossed, watching me like I was the problem. I ignored him and took a seat across from Vanessa. She finally looked up, her face a mix of fake innocence and mild annoyance. So, Mom said after a moment of awkward silence, what did you want to talk about, Dean? I didn't waste time. This is about Christmas and the fact that I wasn't invited because of something Vanessa said that's completely untrue. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Oh my God, are you still on that? She said, her tone dripping with annoyance. I didn't lie. That's what you said, or at least how it came across. Really, I said, pulling out my phone, because I have the texts to prove otherwise. Her smug expression faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered. Texts? Yeah, I said, scrolling through my messages. Remember when I asked you what I should get Mom and Dad for Christmas? This was 2 weeks ago. I opened the conversation and handed my phone to my mom. Here's me asking Vanessa for gift ideas, I said. And I quote, I don't care about the cost, I just want to get them something meaningful. Mom's face softened as she read the message, but before she could say anything, I continued. And here's Vanessa's response. I pointed to the next message. Why waste money on gifts they don't even appreciate half the time? I let that sink in for a moment before adding, so, tell me again, Vanessa, how I'm the one who hates Christmas and doesn't want to spend money on gifts? The room went dead silent. Mom looked up at Vanessa, her expression confused. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat, like he didn't know how to process what he was hearing. Vanessa, on the other hand, doubled down. Oh, come on, she said, crossing her arms. You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. I didn't mean it like that. Didn't mean it like what? I shot back. You told Mom and Dad lies about me. Meanwhile, you're the one complaining about how much gifts cost and saying they don't appreciate it anyway. She glared at me, but I could see the cracks in her confidence. It's not a big deal, Dean. You're overreacting. I turned to my mom. Am I overreacting? Because you believed her without even asking me about it. You kicked me out of Christmas based on her word alone. Mom opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She looked at Dad, probably hoping he'd back her up, but he just sat there, arms crossed, staring at the floor. Vanessa wasn't done yet. She shifted in her seat, her arms crossed, but there was a calculated look in her eyes now. I'd seen it 100 times before. It was the look she gave right before turning everything around to make herself the victim. Okay, fine, Vanessa said, throwing her hands up. Yes, I said that, but do you want to know why? Because I've been under so much pressure lately, and it's been really hard to keep up with everything. I'm barely holding it together as it is, and now you're dragging me through the mud in front of everyone just to make yourself look better. Mom's face softened immediately, and I could see Dad's scowl deepen. Vanessa, Mom said gently, what do you mean, honey? What's been so hard? Vanessa sniffed dramatically, as if she were on the verge of tears. Grad school, for one thing, she said, her voice wavering just enough to sell it. And you know Matt and I are still trying to pay off the wedding. Plus, everything is so expensive now. Groceries, rent, everything. It's not like I have someone swooping in to save the day for me. I'm doing the best I can. She glanced at me as she said that last part, like I was the one who'd somehow failed her. I rolled my eyes. You've got to be kidding me, Vanessa. You literally asked me for thousands of dollars yesterday. You don't get to play the I have no support card when you've been leaning on me and Mom and Dad for years. That was the wrong thing to say. Dean, Mom snapped, her voice sharp for the first time all night. There's no need to be so cruel. She's clearly struggling. Cruel? I said, incredulous. Mom, she lied about me to get me kicked out of Christmas, and now she's turning this whole thing into a pity party because she doesn't want to take responsibility. Vanessa shook her head, her expression a perfect mix of hurt and frustration. You don't get it, Dean, she said, her voice breaking slightly. You've never had to worry about this stuff. You've always had a good job, plenty of money, no one depending on you. It's easy for you to sit there and judge me, but you don't know what it's like to actually struggle. That hit a nerve. I leaned forward, my hands clenched into fists on my knees. Are you serious right now, Vanessa? I've been working since I was 16. I paid for my own college. I've helped Mom and Dad with bills, and I've bailed you out more times than I can count. Don't sit there and act like I've had it easy just because I don't complain about every little thing. Dean, enough, Dad barked, his voice loud enough to make everyone jump. You've made your point. There's no need to keep piling on.
Piling on?
I said, my voice rising.
Dad, she's the one who lied about me.
She's the one who caused this whole mess, but somehow I'm the bad guy for calling her out? Yes, you are, Mom said, her tone firm but laced with disappointment. Because instead of trying to understand where Vanessa is coming from, you've spent this whole time attacking her. She's clearly not in a good place right now, and instead of helping her, you're just making things worse. I stared at her, stunned. So, let me get this straight. Somehow, I'm the one in the wrong? Are you even hearing yourselves right now? Mom crossed her arms, her face stern. We're hearing you just fine, Dean, but what we're also hearing is that you don't seem to care about what Vanessa's going through. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? I've been supporting this family for years, and this is how you repay me? Dad shook his head, his expression a mix of frustration and disappointment. This isn't about repayment, Dean. It's about doing the right thing. Vanessa's your sister, and she's clearly going through a tough time. Instead of embarrassing her like this, you should be helping her. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Helping her? That's all I've ever done. But every time I try to set a boundary, every time I say no, I'm suddenly the villain. Do you even realize how exhausting that is? Dean, Mom said, her voice softening again. You've always been the dependable one, the strong one. We didn't think you minded helping out. Well, I do mind, I said firmly, and I'm done. At that, Matt finally spoke up. Maybe we should all just calm down, he said quietly. Like he didn't want to upset anyone. No, I said firmly, cutting him off. We're not calming down. This is the problem. Every time I try to stand up for myself, I'm told to calm down or let it go. Meanwhile, Vanessa gets to lie, manipulate, and take whatever she wants without any consequences. Mom tried to step in, her voice wavering. Dean, we didn't mean to make you feel this way. We just wanted to keep the peace. By throwing me under the bus, I interrupted. That's not keeping the peace. That's choosing sides, and it's pretty obvious whose side you're always on. Vanessa looked like she was about to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. Here's what's going to happen, I said, keeping my voice steady. If you really think I should pay for Vanessa's tuition, disregarding her disrespect and lies all these years, fine, I'll do it. But just so you know, the moment I make the payment, I'm done. No more money, no more favors, no more holidays. I'm out. Call it a last favor if you want, and this time I mean it. It's the last one. The room was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Vanessa's mouth fell open in shock. Mom looked like she was about to cry. Dad just stared at me, his face unreadable. You can either keep treating me like the family ATM, I continued, or you can start treating me like a person. But if you choose the first option, don't expect me to stick around. Without waiting for a response, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. Let me know what you decide, I said over my shoulder. And with that, I left. After I walked out of that meeting, I didn't hear from anyone the rest of the night. No calls, no texts, just silence. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. That's how it always went when I tried to stand up for myself. They'd let things sit for a bit, hoping I'd either cave or come crawling back to make peace. But not this time. At first, I thought maybe they were finally taking me seriously. Maybe Mom and Dad realized how messed up this whole situation was. Maybe they'd come back to apologize and try to make it up. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For once, I'd said exactly what needed to be said, and I didn't hold back. No more sugarcoating, no more trying to spare their feelings while mine got stomped on. It felt good. I knew they wouldn't let this go quietly, especially Vanessa. She hated losing control over any situation, and I'd completely turned the tables on her at that meeting. I figured it was only a matter of time before someone reached out to try and fix things or guilt me into backing down. Sure enough, late that evening, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. Dean, can we talk before Christmas, please? It's important. I stared at the screen for a minute, debating whether to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I also knew avoiding the conversation wouldn't fix anything. So, I called her back. Hi, Mom, I said, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. What's going on? Hi, honey, she replied, sounding almost nervous. I wanted to make sure you're okay. This has been a really difficult time for everyone, and I just feel like we've all been hurt by what happened. Hurt. That was rich, considering I'd been the one lied about, excluded, and then guilted into paying Vanessa's tuition, but I held my tongue. I'm fine, I said shortly. Is that all? Well, she continued hesitantly, I was hoping we could all put this behind us. It's Christmas after all. Don't you think we should focus on moving forward instead of dwelling on what happened? There it was, the classic let's sweep this under the rug approach. I'd seen it too many times before. Mom, I said, my tone firm but not angry. This isn't about dwelling on the past. It's about setting boundaries. And you never do that with Vanessa. I've made my decision, and I'm sticking to it. I'm not going to keep being the person everyone leans on without any respect or consideration in return. She sighed heavily, and for a moment I thought she might start crying. Dean, I understand that you're upset. I'm not upset, I interrupted. I'm just done. There's a difference. There was a long pause before she spoke again, and when she did, her tone had shifted. It was softer, more resigned. If that's really how you feel, then we've talked about it and we'll respect your decision. I blinked, caught slightly off guard. You will? Yes, she said, though there was a strain in her voice. We don't want to lose you, Dean. If helping Vanessa with her tuition is your way of stepping back, we'll accept that. But it's just hard. You've always been such a big part of this family. I almost laughed at the irony. A big part? I repeated. You mean the part that pays for everything while getting nothing in return? That's not fair, she said quickly, her voice breaking a little. We've always appreciated everything you've done for us. Maybe we just didn't say it enough. No, you didn't, I said bluntly. And that's the problem. It's not about the money, Mom. It's about the fact that you all took me for granted. Vanessa lied about me, and instead of giving me the benefit of the doubt, you believed her without question. Do you have any idea how that felt? She didn't respond right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Dean. I didn't realize how much we hurt you. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. I appreciate that, Mom, but an apology doesn't change what's been happening for years. I'm not going to keep putting myself in a position where I'm disrespected and used. That's why I'm stepping back. There was another long silence, and I could almost picture her sitting at the kitchen table, trying to find the right words. I just wish things could go back to the way they used to be, she said finally. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. So do I. But that's not going to happen unless things change. And honestly, I don't think Vanessa's capable of changing. She's been this way her whole life because you and Dad let her get away with it. That's not fair, she said again, though her tone was weaker this time. We've tried to do what's best for both of you. No, you've done what's best for Vanessa, I corrected. And I let it happen because I didn't want to rock the boat. But I'm done doing that. For a moment, I thought she might argue again, but instead, she let out a shaky sigh. Okay, Dean. If this is really what you want, we'll respect your decision. Good, I said simply. I'm sending the payment to Vanessa's school. She should have the receipt in her email. After this, I'm stepping back, like I said. Thank you, she said quietly. I know it doesn't seem like it, but we do appreciate what you've done. I hope you won't cut us out completely. I'm not cutting anyone out, I said, though I wasn't sure if that was entirely true. I'm just setting boundaries. If you can respect that, we'll be fine. She didn't respond right away, but eventually she said, okay, Merry Christmas, Dean. Merry Christmas, Mom, I replied before hanging up. After the call, I wired the money to Vanessa's school and sent her the receipt. Short and to the point. No explanations, no pleasantries, just the facts. It felt strange, almost surreal, to finally put that boundary in place. For years, I'd been bending over backward for my family, thinking it was my duty to keep everyone happy. But now, for the first time, I'd stood my ground, and they actually listened. A part of me wanted them to do something for my sake, to stand up, just once, for me against Vanessa. But they didn't even try. They were fine with letting me go, as long as I paid her fees. I wasn't naive enough to think it would be the end of it. Vanessa wasn't the type to let go of her safety net without a fight, and I knew my parents would struggle with the new dynamic. But for the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my own life. The rest of the day, I went about my business, finishing up some work and making plans with friends for Christmas Eve. That night, as I sat on my couch with a cup of coffee, I thought about what Mom had said earlier. It's sad to see the family fall apart. Maybe she was right, in a way. But it wasn't my fault. The cracks had been there for years, and I'd just been the one trying to hold everything together. Now, I wasn't holding anything. I was letting it go. Christmas came and went, and for the first time in years, it was quiet. No frantic phone calls about last-minute gifts. No guilt-laden texts about how I wasn't doing enough for the family. And best of all, no Vanessa drama. It felt strange at first, like I'd suddenly stepped into
did
the role
it.
I'd been playing my whole
Don't know
life.
how, still, but I did it.
I spent Christmas Eve with a few friends, just a small get-together with some good food and laughs. It wasn't extravagant, but it was nice to be around people who actually appreciated my presence without expecting anything from me.
Okay.
On Christmas Day, I stayed home, slept in, and treated myself to a lazy morning. No rushing around, no awkward family interactions, just me, doing whatever I wanted. Then I started to realize just how much space my family had been taking up in my life. I don't just mean physically or financially, I mean mentally. I'd spent years juggling their expectations, their problems, and their constant need for me to step up. Without all of that hanging over me, I suddenly had time and energy for myself. But while I was moving on and enjoying the space I'd created, it was clear my family wasn't handling it as well. The first sign came the day after Christmas, when my mom called. I almost didn't pick up, but eventually I did. Hi, Dean, she said, her voice a little too cheerful. How was your Christmas? It was good, I replied simply. How was yours? There was a pause, and then she said, It was nice. Quiet, though. We missed you. I didn't bite. I'm sure it was fine, I said. Is there something you needed? Well, she said, dragging out the word like she was trying to ease into the real reason for her call. I just wanted to check in and see how you're feeling. I know things have been a little tense lately. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. I'm fine, Mom. Is there something specific you wanted to talk about? Because otherwise you can't just randomly call me. We're done. She hesitated again, then sighed. I guess I just miss you. The house felt so empty this year without you here. There it was. The guilt trip. But this time it didn't hit me the way it used to. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said calmly. But I think it's good for us to have some space right now. It's been a long time coming. She didn't argue, which surprised me. Instead, she said, Well, I hope you'll come around eventually. You know we need you in our lives. You've been so helpful. Thanks, I said, keeping my tone polite but firm. I appreciate that. I just hoped you'd appreciated my help. We ended the call on a cordial note, but it was clear she wasn't ready to fully accept the new dynamic. Then came Vanessa. She didn't call or text right away, which was surprising. I figured she'd be the first to reach out, either to try and guilt me into helping her with something else, or to spin the situation in her favor. But when her email finally came through, it wasn't what I expected. It was long, way too long, honestly, and full of flowery language about how sorry she was for the misunderstanding. She talked about how much she appreciated everything I'd done for her over the years, and how she hoped we could move past this and rebuild our bond. At first, I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to call her out for the obvious manipulation. The other part of me just wanted to ignore it altogether. In the end, I decided not to respond at all. It wasn't about holding a grudge. It was about protecting my peace. This email was just another attempt to keep me on the hook, and I wasn't falling for it. Mom and Dad are now sending me random texts, asking about things they'd never cared about before. How my job was going, if I needed anything, stuff like that. It was obvious they were feeling the gap I'd left. They'd gotten so used to me being the one who fixed everything, and now that I wasn't there, they didn't know what to do. Vanessa, especially, seemed to be struggling. A mutual friend told me she's complaining about how she's going to be struggling without leaning on me. Hearing that didn't make me feel good exactly, but it did reinforce that I'd made the right decision.
And I'm almost there for, I almost got the 250.
Now they were finally realizing what it meant to not have me around. As for me, life feels lighter. I'm not constantly checking my phone, dreading the next request or demand. I'm living for myself instead of for everyone else. Do I miss them? Not in the way you'd think. I don't miss the chaos or the drama or the constant pressure to be the responsible one. What I miss is the idea of having a family that genuinely supports and respects each other. But I've come to accept that the family I have isn't capable of that, and that's okay. Setting boundaries wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted myself. But looking back, I know it was the right thing to do. I'm no longer the family ATM, the scapegoat, or the problem solver. I'm just Dean. That feels like enough. My dad cut me off to please his new wife and laughed behind my back, so I stayed silent, and what came next crushed their perfect life. My name's Ellie, I'm 22 years old. What I'm about to tell you isn't some made-up family drama. It's my life, and I promise I never thought I'd find myself posting something like this here. But hey, life's funny like that. To really understand the chaos that went down, you need to know a bit of my backstory. My mom, Sarah, was the strongest woman I knew. She was a planner, down to the tiniest details of life. She worked as a senior accountant and was the kind of person who had everything neatly filed and sorted, receipts, life insurance policies, you name it. She even wrote out a whole will years before she got sick. I used to think it was a little weird, but I get it now. She always said, I want to make sure you're okay no matter what. Mom passed away from intestinal cancer when I was 18. I don't know if any of you have dealt with something like that, but watching someone you love slowly deteriorate is devastating. She fought so hard for 4 years, though, and never once complained. She quit her job to focus on treatment, and somehow, through everything, she kept planning, making sure all the paperwork for the house, finances, and my future were solid. Before she passed, she sat me down and said, Ellie, this house is yours now. It's your home, and I want you to keep it. Promise me you'll always take care of it. I was so young at the time, just weeks away from starting college. I barely understood how any of it worked, but I knew one thing, that house was the last piece of her. My mom bought it before she even met my dad. She worked her butt off for it, paid off the mortgage, and built a beautiful life for us there. She made sure it would go to me, no one else. Here's where my dad comes into the picture. My parents divorced when I was 9. There was no big dramatic fallout, no custody battle, no fights over property. My dad just left. He met someone else, Diane, and decided he wanted a new life with her. He remarried pretty quickly and had my half-sister Maya. To be fair, Dad did one thing right. He paid for my college up front by putting money into a separate account. That was his version of child support, I guess. I wasn't angry back then. I just sort of accepted that I wasn't part of his new family anymore. I'd visit them sometimes during the holidays. Diane was never outright mean to me, but it was obvious she didn't really see me as family. She'd do that thing where she'd invite me for dinner but act like she hoped I'd say no. Ellie, you're welcome to join us for dinner, she'd say in this overly cheerful voice while stirring a pot of something. It felt so forced that it made my skin crawl. Dad, meanwhile, was always working to provide for his family, his new family. Maya was about 10 years younger than me, and while I tried to bond with her, I always felt like a guest whenever I was at their house. You know when you're somewhere and you just know you don't belong? That's how it felt. They lived in a rented house back then, nothing fancy but comfortable enough. Anyway, when Mom passed, I had no idea how to handle the house. I was too numb to think straight. Dad and Diane came over right after the funeral, and to my surprise, they offered to help me out. Dad said, Ellie, you can't live alone right now. It's too much to handle. Let us stay here for the summer, and we'll help take care of everything while you figure things out. I didn't argue. I was a mess. I had just lost my mom, my anchor, and the thought of being alone in that big, quiet house scared me. Diane put on her best sympathetic face, acting like she was there for me, while Maya wandered through the house like it was a playground. I remember sitting in Mom's office, my office now, staring at her degrees on the wall and her neatly arranged financial books. She'd worked so hard to make sure I'd have a home, and yet I couldn't even bring myself to touch her things. I let Dad and Diane move into the spare room, and Maya into what used to be Mom's craft room. By the end of the summer, I was getting ready to leave for college out of state. That's when Dad brought up the idea of them staying permanently. Over breakfast one morning, he pushed his coffee aside and said, "Ellie, what if we stayed here while you're at school? You won't have to worry about bills, maintenance, or the house sitting empty. It'll be good for all of us." Diane chimed in, flipping pancakes at the stove. "We take care of everything, Ellie. The house will be in perfect shape when you come home." At the time, it made sense. They'd been decent housemates over the summer. Diane had even softened up a bit. She'd cook meals for me and invite me to her weird little book club meetings where middle-aged women gushed over bad romance novels. Maya started calling me her cool sister, which, I'll admit, warmed my heart a little. So, I agreed. I didn't see any harm in it. I trusted them. Over the next 4 years, I came home for breaks and holidays, and honestly, it was okay. Diane would cook huge welcome home dinners, Dad would crack stupid dad jokes, and Maya would show me her latest middle school drama. I started to believe we had turned into this strange but functional blended family. Sure, there were little things, like Diane rearranging furniture or making subtle comments about the house, but I shrugged them off. It wasn't worth making waves. When I called Dad my senior year of college to tell him I'd accepted a job back in my hometown, he seemed thrilled. "That's great, Ellie. We'll have the house ready for you." I didn't think twice about it. I graduated, packed up my stuff, and made the long trip home, excited to start this new chapter. I should have known something was wrong when the taxi pulled up to the house, and I noticed new curtains in the windows. Little things had changed. The rose bushes Mom planted were still there, but they were pruned differently. The front porch looked repainted. I didn't think much of it until I walked up to the door, pulled out my key, and it didn't fit. That's when everything started to unravel. I'll never forget the exact moment I realized something was seriously wrong. The taxi dropped me off on a warm, sunny afternoon. It felt like such a perfect day to be starting fresh. I was 22, degree in hand, job secured, and ready to move back into the house that I thought would always be mine. I even remember taking a moment to stand in front of the house, suitcase in hand, breathing in that weird mix of roses and fresh-cut grass. Mom's rose bushes were still there, though someone had trimmed them differently, like the rounded way Diane always shaped things. It was little details like that I noticed first, subtle changes. I walked up the porch, pulled out my house key, and slid it into the lock, already picturing my first night back in my room. I'd spent the whole car ride imagining throwing my stuff on my bed, unpacking a bit, and sleeping like a rock after the long trip. But the key didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. I froze, mid-breath, just staring at the door, like maybe I'd forgotten how locks worked. I jiggled the key, I turned it harder. Still nothing. No way, I thought. Maybe I'm overtired, or maybe the lock's jammed. I knocked on the door, still half smiling, still hopeful. A moment later, Diane opened it, wearing an apron and looking like she'd just been baking, flour smudges on her hands and all. For half a second, her face went totally blank. Then she pasted on this fake smile and said, "Ellie, what are you doing here?" That question hit me like a slap. What was I doing here? I live here, or at least I thought I did. I managed to stammer out, "I'm moving back home. I told you guys about this, remember?" Her smile faltered. "Oh, right," she said, like she just remembered something she'd forgotten to put on the grocery list. She stepped aside reluctantly and let me in. The moment I rolled my suitcase inside, it was like stepping into a weird version of my house. The living room was different. Mom's furniture was still there, but it had been rearranged. Diane's tacky farmhouse decor, fake plants and cutesy signs that said things like live, laugh, love, had taken over the mantel and the shelves.
Not the
old
live,
photo of
laugh,
Mommy on the
love.
side table? Gone. A new family photo of Dad, Diane, and Maya was there instead. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, but I tried to stay calm. In the living room, Dad was sitting in Mom's old armchair, the one she used to curl up in with a book after work. He looked up from his tablet and did this awkward double take when he saw me. Maya was sprawled on the couch, her phone in hand, earbuds in. She barely glanced at me. "Hey, you're back," Dad said, sounding like he was trying way too hard to sound cheerful. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a small smile. "Why are the locks changed?" At that, Dad scratched the back of his neck. His nervous habit, always has been. "Oh, I changed them last month. There were a couple of break-ins in the neighborhood, so, for safety. You didn't think to give me a new key?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I was already feeling weird about the whole situation. Diane, who was hovering behind me, jumped in. "We didn't think you'd be here so soon." "I graduated last week," I said, looking between them. "I told you guys I'd be moving back home for my job. I literally sent you the date I'd be here." Diane didn't respond. She just crossed her arms and stared at me, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Dad stood up and gestured toward the office. "Ellie, can we talk privately for a second?" I followed him, suitcase still in hand, my heart pounding. Mom's old office looked more or less the same. though I noticed some of her books had been pushed aside for Diane's stuff. Dad shut the door behind us, and when he turned to face me, I saw it. He was nervous, like he already knew what he was about to say was going to piss me off. "Listen," he started, his voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." Those words made my stomach drop. Dad hesitated, his hands twitching at his sides. "Diane, she thinks this house is mine, that I let you live here after your mom passed." I stared at him, not comprehending. "What?" He sighed, looking at the floor. "I never told her the truth, that your mom bought the house and left it to you. I told her I gave it to your mom after the divorce.
Damn, I didn't make it.
To me when she passed. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at him, feeling like the air had been knocked out of me. My house, my mom's house. The one thing she fought so hard to make sure I'd have, and he lied about it to Diane for 4 years. I had to, Ellie," Dad continued, still not meeting my eyes. "You don't understand what it's like. Diane wouldn't have agreed to live here if she thought it wasn't mine." I found my voice again, though it came out shaky. "So, what? You let her think she owns my house, and now I'm supposed to just, what, disappear?" He grabbed my arm, pleading, No, it's not like that. Just give me a little time to fix this. I'll tell her the truth, I promise. Just not yet. I don't want to ruin my marriage. Please." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own father was asking me to
Let me make
let
sure.
them stay in my house, the house my mom worked her whole life to buy, because he was too much
Let
of
me
a
make
coward
sure
to
that
admit the truth to
these
his
things
wife.
aren't gonna
I
kill
took
my
it easy
other
and handed it to my
dinosaurs.
box, but I was done. I felt sick. I felt betrayed. But mostly I felt like an idiot for trusting them. I agreed to let him fix it, but deep down, I already knew this wasn't going to end well. That night at dinner, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Diane sat at the head of the table, smiling like nothing was wrong, but I caught her glancing at me every now and then, sharp, calculating looks that made my skin crawl. Maya ignored me completely, and Dad barely spoke. I picked at my food, my mind spinning. This was only the beginning. I could feel it. You know how sometimes people don't have to say anything outright for you to know exactly how they feel about you? That's what living with Diane turned into. Constant, unspoken hostility wrapped in fake politeness. Dad was no better. He avoided me completely, as though ignoring the situation would make it disappear. It was as if I'd walked into someone else's house and had overstayed my welcome. Except it was my house. The first few days were awkward but tolerable. I spent most of my time in my room, unpacking my stuff, catching up with old friends over texts, and trying to process everything Dad had told me. The tension wasn't as bad at first, more like that quiet kind where you can feel people watching you. Diane would pop into the kitchen while I was making coffee and make passive remarks like, "Oh, you're up early. You must be on a college schedule still, or are you cooking for yourself tonight? I didn't realize you'd be eating in." The thing is, she wasn't yelling, but every comment carried an undertone that screamed, "You don't belong here." Then things escalated fast. On a Wednesday morning, I was about to throw in a load of laundry. I'd left my clothes sorted in the laundry room and went to grab detergent. By the time I came back, Diane
Okay,
was
so
pulling
they
my clothes out of the
should
washer
be
and tossing them into
okay.
a basket. My white shirts were suddenly mixed with dark clothes that hadn't been washed yet. I froze and just watched her for a second. "Oh," she said, like she'd only just noticed me. "I thought this was Maya's basket. You really should label your stuff." "They were sorted," I said flatly. "And Maya doesn't do her own laundry, does she?" Her smile was razor thin. "Well, I can't keep track of everyone's mess around here." She picked up her cup of tea and walked out, leaving my clothes in a crumpled pile. I knew what she was doing. She wanted me to react, to cause a scene, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. That night at dinner, she made just enough food for 3 people. I didn't realize until I came to the table and saw 3 plates set, one for her, one for Dad, and one for Maya. She looked up at me and said, "Oh, Ellie, I thought you were eating out tonight. You didn't say anything." "I live here," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You didn't ask." She shrugged and smiled, a fake sweetness to it. "Well, there's bread in the pantry if you're hungry." I sat there for a second, considering walking out or even flipping out on her, but instead, I just grabbed my coat and left. I couldn't stand sitting across from them another second.
Nope.
I ended up at the local diner, eating a sandwich alone and texting one of my old friends from high school, "Please tell me you're free tomorrow. I need to get out of the house." The next day, I reconnected with my friend Emily. She still lived nearby, and when I told her about the situation, she gave me that wide-eyed look you give someone when you can't believe what you're hearing. "Wait, they're living in your house? Acting like you're the guest? Ellie, what the hell?" "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "Dad's too much of a coward to tell Diane the truth, and she's trying to make my life miserable. I feel like I'm losing my mind." We spent the afternoon hanging out, catching up on life, and for a few hours, I almost felt like myself again. Emily even joked, "If she keeps pushing, I'll come over and put her in her place for you." It made me laugh, but when I got home, the dread came rushing back. The house was dark and silent. I flicked on the hallway light and noticed something odd. My shoes, which I'd left neatly by the door, had been moved into the coat closet. It was a small thing, but it sent a clear message. Diane didn't want any trace of me visible in her space. Over the next week, she doubled down. I'd wake up to find my things moved around, like my coffee mug mysteriously shoved to the back of the cabinet, or my mail accidentally tossed into a pile of junk. One morning, I went to take a shower, only to realize the hot water was ice cold. Maya had conveniently taken a 45-minute shower right before me. Diane made a show of saying, "Oh, Ellie, I guess you'll just have to get up earlier. Maya's growing, and she takes longer these days." The worst part was watching Maya change.
Oh.
When we were younger, she used to follow me around like a little shadow. She'd call me her big sister and beg me to braid her hair. Now she rolled her eyes whenever I walked into the room and muttered things like, "She's so lazy, Mom." I even overheard her on the phone saying, "I don't know why she's still here. It's not even her house." That hurt more than I care to admit. And then there was Dad. I swear I could feel him avoiding me. He'd come home late or go for walks anytime Diane started needling me in front of him. If I caught him alone and tried to talk about it, he'd just mumble something about keeping the peace. Keeping the peace for who? I hit my breaking point when Diane moved Mom's favorite vase. It had been on the mantle for as long as I could remember. This beautiful ceramic vase with blue flowers painted on it.
That's
One day I
probably
came
it.
home and found it shoved onto a random shelf in
What
the
we have
corner,
here is a
almost hidden. In its
Brachiosaurus.
place was one of
It has
Diane's tacky
long
rustic
limbs
pieces,
relative
an
to the
ugly
rest of
wooden
its
sign
body.
that said "Home
And what
Sweet
makes
Home."
it really
I asked her
unique
about it directly.
is that it's a
"Why did you move the
warm-blooded
vase?"
dinosaur.
"Oh," she said,
I
not even
mean,
looking up
how
from her tablet.
amazing
"I
is
just
it
thought
that
it
in
didn't match
bringing
the new
these
style I'm
dinosaurs
going
back,
for
we're
in here.
also learning
I'm sure
so
you
much
understand."
about them.
I didn't reply, but I felt something snap inside me. That vase was more than just decor. It was a piece of my mom, a memory of her, and Diane had no right to touch it. That night, I started packing up Diane's things in my head. I wasn't ready to act yet, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. By the time Saturday morning rolled around, I felt like I was living in someone else's house, an unwelcome guest in my own home. The hostility from Diane had grown so thick that even walking into the kitchen felt like stepping into enemy territory. I avoided being in the common spaces when she or Maya were around, just to keep my sanity. That morning, though, something was off. I woke up to silence, total silence. No sound of Diane in the kitchen banging pots, no Maya blasting pop music from her room, and no Dad watching the morning news on TV. It was eerie. At first, I thought maybe they'd just gone out for breakfast or something, but the house felt abandoned. It was too clean. The kitchen counters were spotless, the dining table was empty, and even the shoes that were always cluttered near the front door were gone. I stood there barefoot, still in my pajamas, my stomach sinking. I checked my phone, nothing, no texts, no missed calls. I tried calling Dad first, straight to voicemail. That's weird. I tried him again, same result. By this point, I felt like something wasn't right. Maybe it was paranoia after weeks of tension with Diane, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a regular Saturday morning. Finally, I dialed Diane. I was about to hang up after the fourth ring when she picked up. Her voice was sharp.
Well, I assume you did.
"What do you want?" Her tone caught me completely off guard. I just wanted to know where everyone is. I woke up, and the house is empty. She laughed. Not a normal laugh, a mean, ugly sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, didn't we tell you? We're in the Maldives. You know, sunny beaches, luxury resorts, the whole deal." I blinked, gripping the phone tighter. "What? The Maldives? First-class flights and everything," she added with mock cheer. "We didn't mention it because, frankly, we didn't want you tagging along. You're not exactly in the position to pay your way, are you?" My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" That's when she dropped the act completely. "I'm talking about you living in our house like some entitled brat," she spat. "Your father might be too soft to say it, but I'm not. You're a freeloader, Ellie. You've been mooching off us long enough. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a grown woman squatting in our house while we're paying all the bills?" I could barely breathe. My hands were shaking, and I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, my legs too weak to hold me up. "It's not your house," I managed to choke out. "It's my house." She ignored me. "We're done, Ellie. When we get back, I want you gone. I don't care where you go. Sleep on a park bench for all I care. But you're not staying here. If you're still in that house when we come back, I'll personally throw you out." In the background, I could hear Maya laughing and Dad saying something I couldn't quite make out. The sound of it twisted the knife deeper. "Diane, you don't bother trying to call your father," she interrupted, her voice icy. "He agrees with me. He's just too weak to tell you himself. We've already blocked your number. Have a nice life, Ellie." And then she hung up. I sat there in shock, the silence of the house pressing in on me. I stared at the phone, half expecting her to call back and say it was some cruel joke, but she didn't. My father's silence on the other end had been enough to confirm everything. They were gone, on vacation, living it up on a tropical island, while I sat alone in what was supposed to be my house. And the worst part? They planned to throw me out when they got back. For the first few minutes, I just sat there, my mind blank. I couldn't process it. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that my dad, my own father, had let this happen. He didn't stop her. He didn't stand up for me, or he just went along with it. But the shock didn't last long. It turned into something else, something I hadn't felt in weeks, rage. They wanted me gone? Fine. But they'd forgotten one very important thing. This was my house. I spent the next hour sitting in that chair, staring at the walls, replaying the conversation in my head. Diane's voice echoed over and over. Freeloader, squatter, embarrassing. It wasn't just what she said, but the way she said it. Like I was some useless parasite clinging to their perfect lives. Like I didn't belong here. Well, I wasn't going to let her win. By noon, I had a plan. First things first, I blocked their numbers. I didn't want to hear a word from any of them, not even Dad. Then I called a locksmith, emergency service. The guy asked when I explained what I needed. Yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, as soon as possible. The locksmith arrived that afternoon, an older guy with kind eyes who didn't ask too many questions. He changed every lock in the house, front door, back door, garage door, you name it. It cost me more than I wanted to spend, but at that point, I didn't care. Anyone else have keys to these doors? He asked as he handed me the new set. Not anymore, I replied. Once the locks were changed, I grabbed some garbage bags and boxes and started packing up their stuff. I was done pretending like everything was fine. If Diane and Dad thought they could waltz back into my house after treating me like garbage, they were in for a surprise. I went room by room. Diane's expensive clothes, packed. Her fancy bathroom products cluttering up the counters, into a bag. Maya's toys, school supplies, and whatever else she'd left lying around, boxed up. Dad's golf clubs, the ones he never used but always bragged about having, straight into the garage. By the time I finished, the sun was setting, and the garage was packed full of their things. It was exhausting, but it felt good, like I was reclaiming what was mine, piece by piece. I sat on the couch that night, staring at the clean, empty space that had been taken over for years. It felt strange, quiet, but it also felt like home again. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in forever. I brewed myself a cup of coffee, sat in Mom's old chair, and watched the sunlight stream through the window.
Hi, Gunther.
This was just the beginning.
You have to be right on the thingy. I can't see.
Well, I didn't know what to expect from him anymore.
Hi, buddy.
But one thing was certain, I wasn't going anywhere. It was a Friday evening when the storm hit. I'd been expecting it, honestly. I'd spent the whole week mentally preparing for the explosion that was bound to happen once they came back and saw what I'd done. I even rehearsed what I'd say, over and over again, so I wouldn't stumble or give them a chance to manipulate me. That afternoon, I'd come home from work, dropped my bag by the door, and noticed how quiet the house was. It wasn't the eerie, empty quiet I'd felt that morning after Diane's call. No, this was the kind of quiet that felt right. It felt like peace, my peace. I had just sat down with my laptop to catch up on some emails when I heard the car pull into the driveway. The sound of tires crunching on gravel made my stomach twist, but I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't move from my spot on the couch as I listened to doors slam, footsteps pound up the walkway, and then the sound of Diane trying and failing to unlock the front door. She started banging on it immediately. Ellie! Her voice was already shrill. Ellie, what the hell is going on? Why won't the door open? I let her bang for another 30 seconds before I stood up, grabbed the new keys from the counter, and walked to the door.
What, you wanna lay on me here?
Sweet time unlocking, savoring the brief pause in her yelling. When I finally opened the door, I was greeted with Diane's furious face. Her hair was a mess, her face red, and she looked like she was ready to bite my head off. Behind her, Dad stood stiff and awkward, looking anywhere but at me. Mama was leaning back near the car, her arms crossed and scowling. What did you do?
Oh, okay, bye, Gunther.
Why did you change the locks? I stepped aside and let her storm in. Dad followed quietly, his shoulders hunched, avoiding my gaze. Maya trailed after him, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Diane turned on me immediately. I want an explanation right now. I crossed my arms and met her glare without flinching. It's pretty simple, I said. This is my house. You don't live here anymore. Her mouth fell open, like I'd slapped her. Your house? Yes, my house. The house my mom bought. The house she left to me. The one you've been living in under a lie for the last 4 years. For a split second, the room went silent. Diane looked at Dad, her face full of confusion and growing anger. What is she talking about? Dad didn't answer. He just stood there, frozen. I turned to him, my voice sharp. Tell her, Dad. Tell her the truth. Diane spun to face him. What truth? What is she saying? Dad mumbled something I couldn't hear, his voice so quiet I thought he might have been choking on his own guilt. Speak up, Diane snapped. What is she talking about, Richard? Dad finally looked up, his face pale. It's true, he said, his voice weak. The house, it's not mine. It never was. Sarah bought it before we were married. She left it to Ellie in her will. For a second, Diane just stared at him, blinking, as though she couldn't process the words. Then her face turned a deep shade of red. You lied to me? Dad flinched, like she'd struck him. I didn't mean... You told me this was your house, she shrieked. You said you let Ellie stay here out of the goodness of your heart. Do you have any idea how stupid this makes me look? Her voice was loud enough that I was sure the neighbors could hear, but I didn't care. Let her scream. Let her throw her tantrum. I'd spent weeks feeling like a stranger in my own home. She could deal with a little reality. Diane turned back to me, her eyes blazing. You ungrateful little brat. After everything we've done for you. I cut her off. Everything you've done for me? Like what? Trying to erase my mom from this house? Calling me a freeloader? Planning to throw me out? That's not helping, Diane. She opened her mouth to argue, but I wasn't finished. Your stuff is in the garage. Take it and leave. At that, Maya finally spoke up. Mom, let's just go. Her voice was quiet, and for the first time I saw something other than anger in her expression. Embarrassment, maybe. She looked at me for half a second before turning away again. Diane ignored her. We are not leaving, she snarled. This is our home, too. No, it's not, I said, my voice steady. It's mine, and I want you out. Dad finally stepped forward, looking like he wanted to fix everything with a single sentence. Ellie, please, he said, his voice trembling. We don't have anywhere to go right now. Just give us a few weeks. I held up my hand. No. His face crumbled. Please, sweetheart, I know I messed up, but we're family. Family doesn't treat each other like this, I shot back. You let this happen. You let Diane think this was her house. You let her treat me like garbage, and you stood there and said nothing. Dad had nothing to say to that. He just looked down at the floor like a scolded child. Diane, on the other hand, wasn't ready to give up. You're a selfish little girl, she spat. You think you're so high and mighty because of this house. You wouldn't even have it if it weren't for your father. I laughed bitterly. My father had nothing to do with this house. Mom bought it with her own money before you or him were even part of the picture. She made sure it would be mine because she knew I couldn't count on him. That shut her up. I turned back to Dad. You can take your stuff and leave. I'm done with this. For a moment, nobody moved. Diane stared at me like she wanted to lunge at me, but Dad finally nodded, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Fine, he whispered. It took them about an hour to load their things into the car. Diane didn't stop muttering under her breath the entire time, calling me names, swearing about how ungrateful I was. Dad just looked hollow. Maya stayed quiet, helping carry things without a word. When they were done, Dad knocked on the door one last time. I didn't open it. I watched from the window as they drove away, Diane's voice still faintly audible through the glass. The house was quiet again when they were gone. For the first time in years, it felt like it belonged to me, like it belonged to Mom. I sat down on the couch and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. They were gone, finally. It's been 2 months since that day. Dad still tries to call from random numbers, but I don't pick up. Some relationships can't be fixed, and honestly, I don't want to. I'm focusing on myself now. My job is great, I've made friends at work, and I'm slowly healing from all of this. I planted new roses in Mom's garden, ones she would have loved, and I'm finally at peace here. To anyone reading this who's dealing with toxic family, sometimes you have to let go. You don't owe anyone your peace, especially not people who take advantage of you. Mom made sure I'd always have a home, and now I'm making sure I honor her by living in it the way she intended.
Partner refused to skip his daily 4-hour gym sessions to help with our 2-month-old baby even when I had 101 fever. Then his brother told me I'm not cut out for motherhood because military wives handle deployments alone. My partner David, 29M, and I, 28F, have been together for 3 years and we just had our first baby, Millie, 2 months old. David works as a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing plant. It's a decent job with normal hours, usually 8 to 5 on weekdays. Before Millie was born, David was really into fitness. He would go to the gym about 5 to 6 times a week for maybe an hour or two. I never had a problem with this because everyone needs their hobbies and he was home most evenings. The pregnancy was rough. I had severe morning sickness until week 20, then developed gestational diabetes. David was supportive during this time, coming to most doctor appointments and helping around the house when I couldn't keep food down. I thought we were a good team. Millie arrived 2 weeks early and it's been chaos since. She has colic and reflux, which means she cries for hours every day, usually from 6 p.m. to midnight. The pediatrician says this is normal and should resolve by 3 to 4 months, but right now it's exhausting. She also refuses bottles completely. We've tried every brand,
Dang,
every
guys.
nipple type, different temperatures, having David feed her instead of me, nothing works. This means I'm the only one who can feed her, which happens every 2 to 3 hours around the clock. Here's where the problem started. About 3 weeks after Millie was born, David announced he was going back to his gym routine because he needed to maintain his mental health. I understood this at first. New parenthood is stressful for everyone. But his gym routine has completely changed. He now leaves work at 5 p.m. and goes straight to the gym. He doesn't come home until 9 or 10 p.m. most nights. When I asked him about it, he explained that he's doing a new workout program that requires longer sessions. He does weight training for about 90 minutes, then cardio for another hour, then he sits in the sauna for 45 minutes to an hour. After that, he often runs into gym buddies and they'll grab protein shakes and talk for another 30 to 45 minutes. This means I'm handling Millie's worst crying period completely alone every single day. Those evening hours from 6 to 10 p.m. are brutal. She screams no matter what I do. I've tried swaddling, white noise, car rides, bouncing on an exercise ball, warm baths, everything. Sometimes I have to put her in her crib and step outside for 5 minutes just to catch my breath because the crying is so overwhelming. By the time David gets home, Millie has usually exhausted herself and fallen asleep. He'll peek in at her, tell me she looks peaceful, and then make himself dinner. He often comments on how quiet the house is and how he's glad he missed the difficult part of the evening. I tried talking to him about this several times. I explained that I need help during those evening hours, or at least some relief afterwards so I can shower or eat a proper meal. I suggested he could go to the gym in the morning before work, or maybe skip some days and go every other day instead. I even offered to research gyms closer to his work so he could work out during lunch breaks. Each time I brought this up, he would say he understood, but then nothing would change. He'd tell me that his current routine is really working for him and he's seeing great results. He'd promised to try to come home earlier, but it never happened. He started saying that morning workouts don't work for him because he's not alert enough, and that skipping days would ruin his progress. The breaking point came last Tuesday. I had been up since 4 a.m. because Millie was cluster feeding. She barely napped during the day and I couldn't put her down for more than 10 minutes without her crying. I hadn't showered in 3 days and had eaten nothing but granola bars and crackers because I couldn't use both hands to prepare anything else. At 6 p.m., Millie started her usual evening crying session. I texted David asking if he could please come home early just this once because I was at my limit. He replied that he was already at the gym and had plans to meet his workout partner Jake for their leg day routine. He said he'd be home by his usual time. I spent the next 4 hours walking around the house with Millie, trying everything I could think of. My back was killing me from all the bouncing and swaying. At one point I sat on the kitchen floor and cried along with her because I didn't know what else to do. David came home at 9:45 p.m. Millie had finally fallen asleep about 20 minutes earlier. He walked in, saw me on the couch with her sleeping on my chest, and asked if I wanted him to make me a sandwich. When I didn't respond right away, he shrugged and went to take a shower. That's when David's older brother Ryan, 31M, texted me. Ryan has been staying with us for the past 2 months while he looks for his own place after his divorce. He works night shifts at a warehouse, so he's usually sleeping during the day and leaves for work around 10 p.m. Ryan asked if everything was okay because he could hear Millie crying through his bedroom door and noticed I seemed stressed lately. I was so tired that I ended up telling him everything, about David's gym schedule, about feeling overwhelmed, about not getting any help during the hardest parts of the day. His response shocked me. He said I needed to stop being so selfish and think about what David needs. He pointed out that David works hard all day and deserves time to decompress. He said that taking care of babies is what women are naturally good at, and that I should be grateful David is staying in shape instead of letting himself go like a lot of new fathers do. Then he really got going. He told me that my constant complaining was creating a negative atmosphere in the house. He said David probably stays at the gym longer just to avoid coming home to my nagging. He suggested that if I really needed help, I should ask my mother or hire a babysitter instead of expecting David to give up his self-care routine. The conversation ended with Ryan telling me that some women handle multiple kids while working full-time jobs, and that maybe I'm just not cut out for motherhood if one baby is too much for me to handle. I went to bed that night and couldn't sleep even though Millie was finally resting. I kept thinking about what Ryan had said and wondering if he was right. Maybe I was being too demanding. Maybe other women really do handle this better than I am. But then I thought about my sister, who has 3 kids. Her husband coached Little League and had other hobbies, but he was always home by 6 p.m. on weekdays to help with dinner and bedtime routines. My own father worked construction and was exhausted every day, but he still helped my mother with us kids in the evenings. The next morning, I decided to try one more time with David. I waited until he was having his coffee before work and calmly explained my situation again. I told him I wasn't trying to stop him from working out, but I needed some help during Millie's fussy periods. I asked if he could come home just 2 days a week, maybe Tuesday and Thursday, so I could have a short break. David listened and nodded, then said he would think about it. That evening, he texted me at 5:30 p.m. saying
God
he
damn
was
it.
at the gym and would see me later. Same thing happened the next day, and the day after that. On Saturday, I asked him directly if he had thought about our conversation. He said he had, and he felt like his workout routine was too important to his physical and mental health to change right now. He suggested that this phase with Millie would pass soon anyway, so I just needed to tough it out for a few more weeks. That's when Ryan chimed in again. He was making breakfast and overheard our conversation. He told David he was right to stick to his routine, and that giving in to my demands would set a bad precedent. He said I would just keep asking for more and more compromises until David had no time for himself at all.
So this
Ryan then
motherfucker.
turned to me and said I needed to figure out how to manage my time better. He pointed out that Millie sleeps during parts of the day, so I should be using that time to shower and prepare meals instead of complaining about doing it when she's awake. He said that learning to multitask is part of being a parent. I left the kitchen and went to our bedroom. I looked at Millie sleeping in her bassinet and tried to figure out what to do next. David's gym schedule wasn't changing, and now I had Ryan reinforcing the idea that I was being unreasonable. I called my mother and asked if Millie and I could come stay for a few days. I told her I needed some help and space to think. She said yes immediately and offered to come pick us up. I packed a bag for Millie and myself, left a note for David explaining that I needed time to figure things out, and went to my mother's house. That was 4 days ago. David hasn't called or texted once since I left. Not to ask if we arrived safely, not to check on Millie, not to ask when we're coming back. Ryan texted me yesterday asking when I'm planning to stop this dramatic nonsense and come home, but nothing from David. I'm starting to realize that maybe the problem isn't just about gym time. Maybe it's about priorities and what kind of partnership we actually have. But I keep second-guessing myself because of what Ryan said. Am I really being selfish for wanting help with our baby? I don't know what my next step should be. Part of me wants to go back and try to work things out, but another part of me wonders if anything will actually change.
Okay, what
Millie
we have
is
here
David's
is
daughter
a
too,
notosaurus.
but he doesn't seem
This
interested in
dinosaur
being
tends
present
to
for
be
the
shy
hard parts
and
of
likes to
parenting.
keep to itself.
What would you do in my
And he
situation?
has a thick skin.
Am I wrong to expect my
Sort of the
partner to
opposite
adjust
of
his
Owen.
routine to help with our newborn? Update 1: A lot has happened since my original post, and I wanted to update everyone who gave me advice and support. Your responses really opened my eyes to things I hadn't considered before. After staying at my mother's house for a week, I decided to go back home and have a serious conversation with David. I thought maybe if I approached things differently and explained my needs more clearly, we could work something out. I was wrong. When I got home, David was getting ready to leave for the gym. He barely acknowledged that Millie and I had been gone for a week. He didn't ask how we were, didn't seem relieved that we were back safely, nothing. He just grabbed his gym bag and said he'd see me later. That evening, when he came home around 10 p.m., I tried to start a conversation about our relationship and what needed to change. David's response was that he didn't see what the big deal was. He said I had chosen to leave, not him, so clearly I was the one with the problem. He told me that plenty of military wives handle deployments alone with kids, so I should be able to handle him being gone for a few hours each evening. When I pointed out that this wasn't a temporary deployment but an ongoing choice he was making every single day, he got annoyed. He said his gym routine was non-negotiable and that I knew he was serious about fitness when we got together. He claimed I was trying to change him into someone he's not. I asked him what he thought his role should be as Millie's father. His answer was that he would be more involved when she got older and could do interesting things like go to playgrounds or play catch. Right now, she was basically just eating, sleeping, and crying, so there wasn't much for him to contribute. This conversation happened while Ryan was watching TV in the living room, and he kept making comments throughout. He would nod when David said something and shake his head when I spoke. At one point he actually said that I was being manipulative by timing this conversation for when David was tired from his workout. The next morning, I woke up to Millie crying at 5 a.m. David didn't even stir. I got up to feed her, and when I came back to the bedroom, he was awake and scrolling through his phone. I asked if he could take Millie for an hour so I could get some more sleep since I'd been up multiple times during the night. He said he couldn't because he needed to get ready for work soon, and besides, Millie would just cry if he took her since she only wanted me anyway. Then he got up and went to take a long shower while I sat there with Millie, who was still fussing and refusing to go back to sleep. This pattern continued for several days. David would leave for work, go straight to the gym afterward, come home late, eat dinner, and go to bed. Meanwhile, I was handling all night wakings, all daytime care, all household tasks, everything. He acted like his only responsibility was his job, and everything else was my department. The breaking point came last Friday. Millie had been particularly difficult that week. She was going through a growth spurt and wanted to nurse constantly. I was exhausted and hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in days. I had also started getting mastitis, which made nursing painful and gave me flu-like symptoms. I texted David at work asking if he could please come straight home that evening because I was sick and needed help. He responded that he had already committed to meeting his gym buddy for their weekly heavy lifting session and couldn't cancel. He suggested I call my mother if I really needed help. When I told him I had mastitis and felt like I had the flu, he said it was probably just normal tiredness from being a new mom and that I was being dramatic. He said he'd pick up some Tylenol for me on his way home from the gym. That evening was the worst yet. Millie cried from 6 p.m. until after 11 p.m. Every time she latched onto Nurse, I had shooting pains through my breast. I had chills and body aches from the infection. At one point I got so dizzy that I had to sit on the bathroom floor with Millie because I was afraid I might drop her. Ryan was home that evening because he had called in sick to work. Instead of offering to help, he kept coming out of his room to complain about the noise. He asked if there was something wrong with Millie since she was crying more than usual. When I explained that she was cluster feeding and I was sick, he said I should take her to the doctor instead of letting her scream all evening. When David finally came home at 10:30 p.m., Millie had exhausted herself and was sleeping. He found me on the couch with a fever of 101 degrees. Instead of being concerned, he seemed irritated that I looked so disheveled. He asked if I had gotten anything done around the house that day, since he noticed the dishes weren't washed and there was no dinner prepared. I stared at him and realized something had fundamentally changed in how I saw him. This wasn't the same person I had fallen in love with. This wasn't someone who cared about me or our daughter. This was someone who saw us as obligations that were interfering with his preferred lifestyle. The next morning, I called my doctor about the mastitis and made an appointment for Monday. Then I called my mother and asked if Millie and I could come stay again, this time for longer. I told her I needed to make some serious decisions about my relationship. I packed more clothes this time and left another note for David. I explained that I was sick, our daughter needed more attention than I could provide alone, and his unwillingness to help was making everything worse. I said I needed time to figure out if this relationship was working for any of us. This time, David did text me, but not to ask about Millie or check on my health. He texted me Sunday evening asking when I was coming back because he had run out of clean work shirts and didn't know how to use the washing machine. I didn't respond to that text. On Monday, after seeing my doctor and getting antibiotics for the mastitis, I texted him back saying I wouldn't be returning until he was ready to have an honest conversation about sharing parental responsibilities. His response was immediate and angry. He said I was being ridiculous and using Millie as a weapon against him. He claimed he worked hard all day to provide for us, and that should be enough contribution to the family. He said if I wanted help with childcare, I should hire someone instead of expecting him to give up his personal time. Then he said something that really revealed his true feelings. He texted that he never signed up to be a stay-at-home dad, and that traditional gender roles exist for a reason. He said men are naturally better at providing financially while women are naturally better at nurturing children. When I responded that I had also worked full-time before Millie was born and had contributed financially to our household, he said that was different because my job wasn't as demanding as his. He claimed that since I was staying home now anyway, childcare was obviously my responsibility. The final text in that conversation was him saying that if I didn't like our arrangement, maybe I wasn't ready to be a mother yet. He suggested that some women just aren't cut out for the sacrifices that parenthood requires. I screenshot all of these messages and showed them to my mother. She was appalled, especially at his comment about me not being ready to be a mother. She pointed out that he was the one who seemed unprepared for parenthood, since he expected to continue his pre-baby lifestyle without any changes. It's been a week since that text conversation, and David hasn't reached out again. Ryan has sent me a few messages saying I'm tearing the family apart and that David is miserable without us. But when I asked Ryan to put David on the phone so we could talk, Ryan said David was at the gym and would call me later. He never did. I've been doing a lot of thinking during this time at my mother's house. With her help, taking care of Millie has been manageable. She watches Millie for an hour each morning so I can shower and eat breakfast. In the evenings, she helps during Millie's fussy time so I can take breaks when needed. This is what partnership looks like, sharing the load so nobody gets overwhelmed. Millie is actually doing better here too. The mastitis cleared up quickly once I could rest and take my antibiotics on schedule. Millie's colic seems less severe when I'm not stressed and exhausted all the time. She's even started sleeping for longer stretches at night. I'm starting to realize that the problem was never just about David's gym schedule. The gym was just a symbol of his priorities. He prioritized his wants over his family's needs, and he had no intention of changing that. Even when I was literally sick with an infection, his workout was still more important than helping his partner and child. I think I know what I need to do, but I'm scared to take that final step. Millie deserves better than a father who sees her as an inconvenience. I deserve better than a partner who thinks providing financially is the only contribution he needs to make to our family. I'm going to give David one more chance to step up, but this time I'm not going to beg or negotiate. I'm going to clearly state what needs to change and give him a choice. Either he becomes a real partner and father, or Millie and I will build our lives without him. Update 2: I need to update everyone because the situation has gotten more complicated than I expected. Some of you might remember my posts about David prioritizing his gym routine over helping with our newborn daughter Millie. After my last update, I decided to give David one final opportunity to step up as a partner and father. I arranged for us to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop near our house, to have a serious conversation about our future. David showed up 20 minutes late because he had stopped at the gym first for what he called a quick session. He seemed annoyed that I had asked him to meet during what would normally be his workout time. This was already not a great start. I laid out my position clearly. I told him that I needed him to be present and involved as a father and partner. I explained that this meant coming home directly after work at least 3 days per week to help with Millie's evening routine. I said I needed him to take some night feeding so I could get adequate sleep. I also asked him to take responsibility for some household tasks since I was handling all of the childcare. David listened, but his response made it clear that he had no intention of changing anything. He said that he had been thinking about our situation, and he believed the real problem was that I had unrealistic expectations about parenthood.
Alright guys, I'm gonna end here for today. I'm probably still gonna play, but probably gonna end it. So yeah. Bye.
He told me that his gym routine was essential for his mental health and job performance, which ultimately benefited our family financially. He said that asking him to sacrifice his well-being for what he called my convenience was selfish. He suggested that I should be